quickly can that rollover happen? Can it be 12 months or will it be 2 years? Because in 2 years, Brian Lake will be 30, Matthew Boyd will be 30. There'll be players of the late 20s that actually start pushing into the 30s. So you wouldn't think that the window's closing, but there's going to take a very good management of that playing list, an injection of, yes, Mitchell Wallace and Tom Liberatore and these guys who are outstanding young players, but as 18-year-olds, how much will they do in their first year? It is going to be a very tricky year next year for them, no doubt.
The model that interests me, Chris, you've just got a little meeting to take at the back of the box about next week, so you go and do that. The bit that interests me is what Collingwood has done with the 5 players that we spoke about last night who aren't in their team, who were fixtures of that team. Fraser, O'Brien, Lockyer, Prestigiacomo, Davis, and there's one other that just escapes me. They've all been tipped out for younger players, and it's actually made them better. And I didn't have any success with you when I did the model with the Bulldogs as well, but when they lose Eagleton, Hahn, Johnson, Ackermanis, all who have given them precious little this year, and they actually have talent coming through. Now, how good that talent is the legitimate question, but they look all right to me. Roughhead looks good, Wood looks good, Moles looks good. They're 2 high draft picks in a year where you can't get high draft picks because of the father-son. That's bonus territory. And it won't be next year. No. It'll be the couple of years thereafter that might keep them buoyant.
The killer for Rocket is that he thought he had an opportunity to win a grand final with his team. And unfortunately, he hasn't. I don't think he has. Stan alluded to it earlier, that Mick Moldhouse has been building this side for 3 years. You know, the side bottoms last year playing 10 games. All those younger kids playing more games. And now they have 30 players, or 25 players they can rely on. If someone gets injured, guess what? They got someone to replace. And that is the perfect position to walk into a final series or a grand final with. Rocket, sorry, hasn't got it, because the kids aren't ready yet. Kids haven't been played, and they're going to take some time. So what happened is he played older players. He actually recruited 33-year-old to come in Barry Hall, which I found a little bit unusual, but he's been fantastic.
Been raging success.
It's been a raging success, and that's unfortunate, because you know what? It's taken a kid's spot from going forward in the future.
Can I just add one little thing that really stands out to me about Collingwood compared to other sides, and I'll put the Bulldogs in this, that when they bring in a kid, and it might be that a senior player is injured, and they bring in a kid, that kid doesn't ultimately go out. If he plays well, he stays. You don't just walk back in. I don't care whether you played 190 games, you're a forward, your captain and stuff like that. If you lose your spot and that kid sticks up, this is a massive difference. When I think that what happens was so often, there's some kids with the Bullies, for example, who've played really well, and then no, because it's a senior player is there, he's ready for injury, he just automatically comes back and the kid goes out. Yep. That's a big difference to me.
So Rodney's going to have to change his. He's going to have to give the club to these kids.
Yes.
Correct. And he's balked it again tonight by dropping Hooper and bringing Hahn back.
And bringing back a player who really has not got form or anything. He's just hoping because he's a big body and he's played well in the past, but he's certainly not bringing him back on form.
That is a real problem. And Rodney's got a phobia about it. Doesn't play a lot of kids. He hangs on to elder players and wants to recruit some more.
I like the way Ruzi says to a bloke, the spot is yours. Is yours to hang on to. And we're putting you in that team until you show us that you're not good enough, and away you go. And, he's played blokes like Jetta, who, had the horrors in front of goal and kicked 19 miles before he broke through and kicked a goal. Bang, he's played every game.
He's been late coming to that, I reckon, though. I mean, if there is a model for Reed, it's Ruse, because he stuck with all the old blokes for as long as was humanly possible and then changed his mind. So maybe he is the model for Rocket. To go, you know what, I'll trust in what we've been drafting and what we've been bringing here.
Granty, the other Grant, Jared Grant, he kicked 6 goals late in the season against the Bombers, and his 2 finals have been awful. Is his head okay?
Oh, well, look, I'm sure he's been caught out mentally as far as and maybe even a little bit physically. I mean, he's a pretty light-framed fella. If he's not able to run at the moment and outrun his opponent, then it does play into the opposition's hands a little bit. And that's why I say next year, even though we've seen a huge development in him as far as what he's able to do on an AFL stage, next year's still in it's like a transition stage for him. He'll learn a lot about himself next year, and no doubt these two finals, the third that he's going to play tonight, he'll work out the weaknesses in his game in a really honest way, because the first two games he's played in the finals, he's hardly gone near it, couldn't get onto the end of the ball at all, playing against a very, very physical team in St Kilda tonight. So these 3 games in a row will be a learning experience for him. But next year, so he's going to have to develop his body over pre-season. No doubt he's going to have to work on the other deficiencies in his game. But because he's still going to be trying to get to that end point, which is probably still 18 months away for him as far as where his body needs to be able to play AFL football the way it needs to be played, sometimes when it's not on your terms, you've got to be able to play AFL football sometimes when you're not winning the football, and he's not able to do that at the moment because physically he can't. So next year is going to be a very, very interesting year for him. A real
Can I just add a little rider to that? Yep. I think also the boy's got to learn to put himself in a position where he can be used, and his teammates have got to use him. Not just come down and think it's Barry Hall. Because I think that's a real important part. He shouldn't be playing just a secondary role. He could be a real critical thing, because if they're peeling off and they're going to Hall, and he was and had a belief in Hay and puts himself in the position, he could hurt sides dramatically.
Yep.
And then, of course, they worry about him and opens for Hall.
His pace is a real asset. So I hope they're being positive with him and are saying to him, mate, go for it. Go for it. Create some space and go hard.
They would be doing that.
See what they're missing? The enthusiasm, the exuberance, and the desperation of youth. And I reckon that they don't have it.
Saints and the Dogs coming up from the MCG. We pause ever so briefly, though, to take the latest ABC News headlines with Alison Savage.
Thanks, Jared. The Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, has dismissed opposition claims that the government has admitted defeat on asylum seekers. The Immigration Minister, Chris Bowen, has announced plans to expand some of Australia's immigration detention centres. The opposition says that's an admission that asylum seekers will continue to arrive, but Ms Gillard says the government is handling the matter appropriately. Meanwhile, both the federal government and the opposition are supporting plans for a high-speed rail line between Melbourne and Sydney. A study by Infrastructure Partnerships Australia has found the train could travel between the two cities in under 3 hours. The Taliban has launched attacks across Afghanistan as voters turn out today for the country's parliamentary elections. The governor of Kandahar province survived an explosion while visiting polling centres in the southern region. Around 150 families of soldiers deployed in East Timor, Iraq and Afghanistan gathered at the Enoggera Army Barracks in Brisbane today to offer each other support. Some will be reunited with their loved ones from the 2nd 14th Light Horse Regiment when they arrive home next week, but others still have months to wait. A man aged in his 70s has died in a house fire in Western Victoria. The man's body was found at the house at Ararat this afternoon. The fire isn't believed to be suspicious. And on the third day of his visit to Britain, Pope Benedict is today meeting with the British Prime Minister. ABC News.
You can get the ABC in more ways.
News.
With the new ABC iPad app.
Entertainment.
We've already got your phone covered.
3G or Wi-Fi.
No matter which mobile you're on or where you are.
Radio. There
are apps or the ABC mobile site.
Video.
And now there's the new free ABC iPad app.
TV and podcast.
So browse it, swipe it, listen and watch. Get your ABC on the move.
This is Saturday Football on ABC Local Radio.
It is second preliminary final night at the MCG. Collingwood the first through to the 2010 grand final. Now they await an opponent. St Kilda and the Western Bulldogs, as they did last year, meeting in a prelim. It was a complete thriller when they played 12 months ago. Nick Revolt saw the Saints home and into a grand final, but they came up short. Each of these clubs has just the one premiership, and the Dogs have just that one grand final appearance. And for all those Drew Morford filing into the MCG tonight, there is hope and there's glory, and then there's still the wait for next week.
Yes, and the Bulldogs in preliminary finals. They've lost all 8 of their preliminary finals, bar one. They won one in 1961, but they lost the granny the next week. They've got a poor record overall in finals, but particularly preliminary finals. It's hard to imagine that somewhere deep in the psyche it doesn't get in. And who'll forget last year when Nick Revolt played for a free kick before they started play after half-time. He got the simplest goal right in front. It went against Brian Lake. There was half a bit of autumn leaves about Nick Revolt making the most of it. And I'm sure that, Chris Grant, the Doggies fans have not forgotten it 12 months on.
Autumn leaves, it was... I haven't got over that because I was actually watching at the time thinking, if they made a change on Revolt at the time, because Dale had made such a good fist of it, and I thought they've actually rolled Brian Lake onto him. I was a bit concerned, but that wasn't the case. Revolt was actually just running past him, and Brian put his arm out to say g'day for the second half, and... Yes. They talk about the Revolt goal in the last minute of the game, but for me it was that first 30 seconds, or not even that. The game hadn't started, had it? No, at the start of the third quarter.
Chris Grant, Stan Elves, Mark McClure, your experts tonight. The team news change to the Bulldogs lineup. Hooper, who played his first game last week, is out, and Harm takes his place. For St Kilda's, no place for Stephen Baker, and surely that means his finals campaign is kaput.
Yep, you'd have to say so. Yep.
Over.
Righto.
Well, so they'll look back on the 9-week suspension that he had to serve and say, gee, that was a lot of weeks for what it was.
They'll look back on the bowling ball he dropped on his toe, in 2 places, and it cost him 6 weeks of running. Is actually what that's why he's not playing. And once the campaign is over, that full story will come to light. But a bit of skylarking has actually cost him his place in the September action. Banners are out. There was a curious little moment where the 2 cheer squads came together, and I thought we had the Sharks and the Jets going on in the middle of the ground. They just shook hands and wished each other well,
as you
and parted company. Launch into the preview for us, Mark.
Well, with the MCG, a little light rain coming down, 2 sides playing off for a spot in the grand final, and the Doggies just hanging in there, I would say, and I think most people would think that their defence needs to be strong and daring, really daring in how they go about. Dale Morris is back, and Brian Lake needs to pick up his game. Jared Harbrow had some run last week. Hargraves, Easton Wood and Gilby need to really push the ball into their forward line in a hurry. Get it in there in haste and don't fiddle around with it, and push it and win the ball against their opponents. Their midfield, well, you just have to get your head over the ball as they did last week. Boyd and Cross were outstanding. Griffin was terrific as well. Nathan Eagleton found some form, and young Liam Pickham, we know he gets his head over the ball and puts his body in line. Continue to do so. You must beat your opponent at that. The forward line need to spread the defence, because the St Kilda defence need to get players together. Hall, I reckon Robert Murphy will play at centre half forward, no doubt about that, and he is a superstar down there when he plays. Brad Johnson will do his little bit. Jared Grant's a young emerging player. GNC accuser, more tackle chase and hard work, as same as Callum Ward up there as well. They've got a chance. They've got a real chance. They must be attacking. They must take your chances when you get them. Don't muck around. Your man is your starting point. So you've got to start off a man. Doesn't mean you just hang around with him. You start from him and work off him. Leadership. That means everyone's got to do some leadership, and this happen. Make things happen for your football team. Don't die wondering, what might have been. And that's the key to playing in footballs, because it's over if you lose this one. St Kilda side, on target for another tilt at the glory, and that's what they're after. That's what they've set up for, and that's what they've planned for. And they're in a very good spot. Their defence, it's almost the best in the competition at restricting the opposition. And when you look at Zach Dawson, who does that, and Blake and Robert Eddy, and then the runners, Graham, Fisher, Gilbert, maybe Goddard down there who push the ball out. They've got a good balance in that area, but they do a very good job. Their midfield, they put a press on. And Farron Ray and Hayes and Goddard, Montagna pushes up, Snyder pushes up, Del Santo, Clinton Jones. But they've also got a lot of talent in there as well to get the ball forward. Their forward line, well, Nick's a star. He is an absolute star, Revolt. Outstanding. Kaczynski needs to stand up and put his body in line with the ball and do what he normally does in a game and really play a 4-quarter game. I'd look forward to it. Stevie Milne kicks goals. Schneider, McQualter, Lee Montagna. I suppose when you get down there, Pete will get a run down, man. McAvoy as well. Must set the pattern early. That's what the key would be. Ross Ryan will be saying to them, set the pattern early. Just teach these blokes exactly what it's all about. Don't let them know that they haven't got a chance. Kill them early. Hit them hard. Deny them the ball when you get it, so that they don't never get a chance to touch the ball. Make them feel uncomfortable in every way, shape and form. The ultimate awaits you. And that's the key for St Kilda, and that's what they're waiting for next week's game.
Geez, Mark, it's going to be a terrific contest. Terrific contest because the rain did present itself. It has cleared up. Who's it going to suit? We saw St Kilda in the dry in the first week of the finals against Geelong. That first half was exhilarating, absolutely exhilarating. Over to you, Drew.
And here come the Dogs, led out by Brad Johnson. Will this be the last time he captains the Bulldogs at AFL level as he leads the side through the banner? But for his sake and for the whole team and everybody who supports the Dogs, hopefully they get over tonight and Jono will play his last game next week in the grand final.
Well, just getting back to that rain factor, St Kilda in the second half in that final, they didn't play very well. They didn't transition from the dry to the wet. So who's it going to suit? Is it going to suit the smaller bodies of the Bulldogs? Are they able to get across the ground? Interesting stat for the Bulldogs is that contested possessions are good. Their stoppages are good. They're rated number 1 in stoppages. Over the last month, that has dropped off. They've got to get back to that. Ben Hudson has got to control the stoppages. Michael Gardner has been in reasonable form. He's coming up against a player who's aggressive in Hudson. Gardner's tall. Get the advantage to the St Kilda player at the feet. It's really going to go towards a St Kilda win. The other real key for me is how can the Dogs win? What are the things the Dogs have got to do to win this game of football? They've got to penetrate with their kicking. They've got to be precise with their kicking. They cannot turn the ball over against Sydney. This game last year, 129 uncontested marks the Dogs had. No doubt St Kilda would not want that to happen tonight. The rain helps that factor, but the Dogs' ability to get their uncontested marks throughout the ground, and I agree with you, Mark, Rob Murphy has to play forward. If he doesn't play forward, they've got no chance. He was a difference last week. No doubt that Rodney E would have thought the same. We expect him to go forward. Who will pick him up? Well, Dempster for me. Steve Johnson came up against Dempster. Dempster did a fantastic job on him. Very similar types, and I expect that Dempster will pick up Rob Murphy across half forward. The things that St Kilda have in their favour is their ability to be able to outmark. We've seen recently with Kazitsky, and no doubt the champion, one of the greatest players we've seen in Revolt, one of the great workers in the competition. Who's going to play in him? How are they going to stop these players? Lake's probably going to have to go Kazitsky, and the underdone, you'd have to say the underdone Dale Morris is going to have to go with Revolt, but Williams will play in him at times and Lake will play in him at times. Can they stop Revolt? If they stop Revolt, they stop the scoring. Can they stop it enough? That's a real question mark. The other thing that you picked up too, Mark, was the ability of St Kilda to go and use the half-back. And I'll just pass over to Drew while St Kilda come out.
Nick Revolt leads his Saints out onto the field. Gee, for big portions of the year, this looks highly unlikely that he would be here at the pointy end. But he's led St Kilda supremely to this point. Now to give themselves a chance to make amends for what went wrong last year at the final step. They face a foe over which they have the wood. The Saints have beaten the Dogs at their past 4 occasions.
Well, I was just going to end before I pass over to you, Stan. If the Dogs can get Hall one-on-one, you'll play on Dawson, and if Johnson and Murphy and the players, Gene Syracuse across half forward, can make Gilbert and Graham and Fisher all accountable. We saw what Hall was able to do against Grundy last week. Isolating one-on-one, the Dogs can kick a winning score. But this is a very well coached, a very, very confident St Kilda we're seeing. The Dogs are up against it, Stan.
Well, I think that St Kilda will go in favourites. I mean, everybody is saying that. I mean, even the weight of money is saying that, and I think that it would be silly to dispute that because they've got better form on the board than the Bulldogs. So the areas that I'm just going to reinforce probably things that the boys have already said, and I think the first thing is game plan. We know what St Kilda will do. Everybody knows this is the way they play. So the question mark, and you rightly raised it, Chris, is it what do they do? Do they go with their shut down type situation, retain that possession, as you've just said, that short kick to deny them with time and space, or do they take them on? I mean, that's an interesting situation, and part of that will lead into where we're going to play players and what we're going to do from the player's point of view. I think tonight an important thing will happen in the ruck. I think that just the ruck battles there. We've got Hudson. Look at the two main ruckmen. Hudson for a start, sensational warrior. I thought he played a massive role in getting him back into the game last week because he's the grunt. You talk about Cross and Boyd at the packs, but it's his big body in there quite often makes the difference for them in that way, and at least he's able to sort of lean on his opponent, which means that one of Cross or Boyd can come over the top and hit it out wide to the other, whereas Gardner, good in the ruck, but his benefit really is running forward and creating that option and going up there. That's going to be an interesting one. We've talked about the midfields. I think it's not just saying names, but it's the depth of the midfield. How many can you get and can you rotate there? From my reckoning, I would say that St Kilda have got more who can actually go through and rotate in that way. So it's going to put a massive strain on them. But the critical thing also to midfields is getting the combination, the balance right. The players inside, but if they've got it, being able to find somebody outside tonight. That's where I think that people like Montagna and Del Santo are very, very important because they'll want Hayes and Goddard and Jones type players to get in and get the footy, whereas Cross and Boyd are going to be looking for, I would say, Griffin and Eagleton and those players outside to complement what they're doing and what Picken will be doing in that way, in that area, in that situation. The other thing that stands out to me is we've talked about, Riewoldd's just such an important player. You've got to know that if you shut Riewoldt down, you can make a massive difference. So it's a big task in terms of who's going to go there. And you've talked about, will it be Morris? You're telling me he's going to get first crack at. The other thing, when I look in at that situation, I see Riewoldt and Kaziski. Sometimes McAvoy and Gardner will play down there, but quite often they're just the only two talls. Now, if that occurs, we could have a situation where, what's the setup? Williams and Morris are there. You could find Lake goes forward. Lake could become a situation can play. So there's a lot of ifs and buts in this whole game. And I think the other one that's terribly important to this whole game is, to me, is Murphy. And I'm going to add with this because I think if Murphy goes forward, he changes the complexion of the forward line. Not just what he does, but all of a sudden, guess what? I'm going to tell you, there is no way known that Fisher, there's no way known that Gilbert are going to play off him to go and protect Dawson on Hall. So there are so many parameters in this way and add up. But I've got to say, all those other different things, it still comes back, and the thing that is standing out to me in this competition as we've gone through, it normally has been the better ranked side in these finals actually comes out and wins the big game, and that's where I think that they will do that. Could the Bulldogs win? Yes, they could. If there's an element why, I'll just say it could be the rain. It could be the rain situation. Why would I say that? You get a good start and it starts to rain. It's pretty hard to play catch-up football. The importance of playing basic football early, not trying to be too smart, getting the footy in, may not be a mark, may kick it in, and guess what? But it'll be the crummers. It'll be blokes skidding off the packs and kicking the goals. As we go, we know always there's so many ifs and buts in this game of football, and I don't discount the Bulldogs, but I just think that all-round strength and also the fact that St Kilda have played in these games and have a winning record in these games will get them over the line.
The Dogs have Griffin playing. He had the scare at training yesterday, which is unidentified at the moment. Morris, who was out for the season with a back injury, makes a return tonight. Brian Lake has been hobbled for a number of weeks now, although there's a feeling around that he was freed up a little bit this week, physically more so than he has been. So they have limped to this point. We wait to see how it pans out now that they take the field. I know you've all touched on this, but the absolute treatment of Riewoldt, what is the game plan for Rodney Eade?
I think he's going to start with Morris. I think he has to. He's been successful before, but he cannot. But see, what'll happen? Nick will run himself into the ground in the first quarter. He will cover more ground. He'll do 5Ks first quarter, no doubt at all. In 20 minutes, he'll be flat out running up and down. And there needs to be 2 or 3. The ruckman need to come across him every now and then. Anyone who walks past him needs to hit him. Needs to walk and really put him on the ground and do all those things that you need to do. If you want to win this game, sometimes you can't play by the rules all the time. I think the Doggies need to do that.
I think there's a massive thing in it. I think you hit onto it earlier on, and that was the poor performance of the Bulldogs forwards to hold the ball in. I think one of the critical things is that if the Bulldogs forwards can not allow that rebound, it means Riewoldt has to come far up the ground. I don't care how many kicks he would get across the middle of the ground. What you were worried about is when he gets him inside the forward arc and closer to goal. That's in situation. If you can almost sheepdog him up the ground, get that pressure, okay, he gets his 12 or 13 marks and things like that, but if it's up the ground in that situation, that to me is a win for the Bulldogs.
The conditions are going to make it harder for for the St Kilda players to be able to grab clean use of the ball off the deck. Hayes will be spinning it out. Can Schneider deliver perfect passes to Revolt? But what the Dogs have to do right across the ground in every single position, someone's got to stand up and start tackling. You can't go into a preliminary final ranked 16th in the competition for tackles and expect Dale Morris to do a job on Nick Revolt. You can't expect Brian Lake to do a job on any of the forwards that are down there. Someone in the team, and I'm hoping all of them, stands up tonight and starts tackling. If they're winning the tackles, Revolt will get less of the ball.
That's their leadership. That comes from every age, not just the older.
It is time to stand up because the formality is about to be observed out on the MCG. St Kilda and the Bulldogs lined up on the members' wing. The AFL's Master of Ceremonies is Craig Willis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Australian Football League and our premier partner Toyota welcome you here tonight to the second preliminary final at the MCG. Would you now please join in with the coaches, the players and umpires as we stand for the Australian National Anthem.
Saints and Bulldogs fans who square up in a night preliminary final for the second year running. Last year, in an absolute thriller, it was the Saints at the death, the Bulldogs trying to push them that far again. You've had the preview, now the tips. Stan Ells.
St Kilda fully fit, in top form, on total song with their coaches' game plan and requirements will win.
Mark McClure.
Yes, St Kilda comfortably.
Chris Grant.
Dogs don't win the tackles, can't win, but St Kilda for mine. Couple of goals, St Kilda.
What, are you giving up already?
Well, if they can't win the tackling count, they can't win the game.
That's right.
Brad Johnson won the coin toss.
And you told us in the preview that it hasn't been a tradition at the Bulldogs to win the tackling count because Libba used to tackle on his own and nobody else was to help him. So here we are 15 years later, they're still doing it.
Libba had 75% of our tackle count.
And that's an important thing I just add to that, Chris, because with the way the game is played in so many numbers around, it's not just one player tackle, it's gang tackle. Gang tackle is the critical component of this, and I think, again, not to harp on it, but that's where Collingwood is fantastic. It's never left to one person.
And they never let the ball spit out.
Yeah.
They never let the opponents be able to spit the ball out to get a free running play. If the Dogs tackle, that's fine. They've got to lock that ball in. They're good at stoppages. Keep the ball in there. Stoppage after stoppage, but don't let free ball.
It's 10 degrees. It's been pretty wet in the past hour and a half or so. Seems to be at least not raining at the moment. Who'd you tip, Drew?
I'll have to go for the Saints.
Quick word from Adam White before the opening siren. Whitey?
Yeah, Jared, you're exactly right. It's not raining at the moment, but there has been a fair bit of rain over the last couple of hours. It's going to make it slippery. The ground conditions are really firm underfoot, but just with that film of water over the top, I think it'll be a very, very slippery start. Brad Johnson won the toss. The Bulldogs kicking to the punt road end.
And I'm for the Saints as well, so we'll see.
The Saints wearing the black armbands for Jack Barker, club legend, father of Trevor Barker, who died yesterday. A bit of a box on in the middle of the ground before players even went to their positions. Not a box on, just a bit of push and shove, just getting to know each other.
As I look out there, doing a count, it appears to me that the Bulldogs are going with a 5-man forward line. I see young Grant up next to Hall, Hahn just playing just in front of him, and their smaller players, Johnson and Gian Siracusa, are playing up high on the line. So they're going to roll the dice and allow both sides to have a man behind the play.
Williams has gone to revolt. Opening siren, second preliminary final. Who goes on to play Collingwood? Is it St Kilda or the Bulldogs? Drew Morphett.
There's the bounce to start the game. They go up and Hudson just beats Gardner. They both go to ground. The next touch goes to Jones of the Saints, but he can't quite get boot to ball. It goes St Kilda's way, though, without a possession. And now the umpire blows the whistle, and he's seen a free kick to the Dogs.
But just quick, Gilby's actually condescended. He snuck around the back, and they've got 6 men, and he's now... they haven't picked him up.
Hargrave the handball, and he gets it away to Harbrow, whose kick's no good, smothered by Montagna. He gets it to Hayes, and the whistle's gone for off-the-ball interference, and Revolt gets one of those free kicks for the Saints, like he did in the second half last year, same night, preliminary final, off the ball, Revolt a free kick, but this time it's centre-half forward rather than in the goal square.
Well, it wasn't Williams who gave the free kick away, it was one of the on-ballers who saw Revolt on his own. Probably a tactic, Mark, that you picked up on. Bump him at all costs, hold on to him, don't let him run.
So, with the hammy that cost him 9 games, could he make the distance from 57? Well, he hooks the kick, it's off the fingers and goes out of bounds alongside the behind post for a throw in. St Kilda in attack. Whitey.
All conjecture during the week was, would Morris play and would he play on Revolt? Well, he's playing, but he's playing on Stephen Milne.
Left forward pocket. Saints looking to open the scoring. Gardner knocks it out to Milne. Dragged down by Morris. Good tackle. Harbrow to Boyd out of the defence. Flicks it wider still to Grant. Coming off half-back. Delivers out to Hall. He takes the mark ahead of Dawson. Hall looks up. St Kilda flood back. Nothing obvious for Baz to kick out. It's hemmed in on the boundary. Dawson comes at him. Hand passes backward to Hargrave. Gets around Milne. Did okay, but he's got to work the kick up the wing. Over the top of Grant and past Brad Johnson and out of bounds at left half forward for the Dogs.
He had to kick it there because there was no movement whatsoever from the Doggies forwards. You need to move, create space for someone else to run in, even if you don't get the ball yourself.
Crowd about half what it was last night. Here's the boundary throw-in. Down towards half-forward for the Dogs. Gardner wins in ruck for the Saints. It comes down to Hayes. Little hand pass backwards is okay for Milne. His kick over the wing, but over the boundary line as well. Out of bounds on the full. Too wide for Revolt, and the free kick to Morris. He'll take it in between halfback and wing. Great Southern stand side. The Dogs going to the punt road end in the first quarter after Brad Johnson won the toss. Will this be the champs' last game in the AFL?
Long kick up to half forward. Seemed to be a bit of interference. Certainly Dogs fans saw it that way. No whistle was forthcoming. Hudson came lurching out of the pack. Gilbert off half back to Del Santo. He tried to get it back to Gilbert but failed. It's out of play. Last time it was such a tense evening. We've gone 3 minutes without a score. Even the first time round this year, the most bizarre match of the season. 7 goals to 6, St Kilda stealing it at the end. Out on the wing, tackles are laid, no possessions.
Yeah, that time the Saints trailed for 89% of the game and got up. They kicked the last 4 goals.
That was laughable that night. Thrown up, right on the logo, southern wing. Hayes goes third man up. Ball ricochets back into his grasp. Hand pass to Montagna. Out to Jones against the boundary. St Kilda look to stream forward. Jones kicks it around the boundary. A little too high for Revolt. Williams was able to clear it and put it out of bounds. The pair of 12s on each other.
And I might add that time, 7 goals was the winning score. That's all it took. Will we get a game like that tonight? Throw in at half forward for the Saints. Hudson wins in ruck. Gets it down beautifully to Boyd, who gets a tough kick away. Up to Grant on centre wing, playing in front. Interfered with. The crowd want a free kick. Grant doesn't get it, but he flips out the hand pass to Barry Hall, who passes to Johnson. And Brad Johnson marks 55 metres from goal. Not too many inside the 50 for him, so he has to square the ball up. Doesn't hit the target. It bounces for Boyd. He slides it to Harbrow. Off the left, he kicks towards full forward. Touch play on. It's all St Kilda back there. And Peake in the last line. Kicks out wide, close to the boundary line. Out of bounds will do him. And it's out of bounds at right half-back flank for the Saints. Still scoreless, 4.5 played.
Hudson and Gardner will contest the throw-in. It's on its way into play. Griffin goes third man up. He knocked it to his direct opponent in Jones. Hand passes around the boundary. Didn't make any ground. And Milne and Morris see it over. So an extended period of sparring. It's the filling out period. Without any real menace or heavy blows. Del Santo goes to ground at the front of the pack. He was offloaded. Griffin down by Gardner. Hayes comes through. Hand pass to Montagna. Didn't collect. Boyd knocks him over. Coming through is Boyd with an assist from Gilby. Dragged down by Jones. Terrific tackle. Ball slews away. And over the boundary. 60 out from the Bulldogs goal. Pretty well where the previous was. Thrown in. Hudson tried to get it over the back. Kick out of the air. Boyd cut off by Goddard. Just rolls the ball round the wing. Done. This is tough. Williams onto the footy. He fumbled. Schneider gets in and gets in. And the pack forms, and there it'll be bounced. Adam White.
Just a little bit of a concern to Lindsay Gilby. Actually took himself off, got a knock to the right knee. He's getting that assessed at the moment as he walks the boundary.
The umpire throws it up rather than bounces. Hudson wins, but the ball comes to Montagna of the Saints. A bouncing ball to half forward. Good gather down there by Milne, but he's taken the ground by Murphy of the Dogs. Spills to Harbrow. Away to Morris. Morris upended, but kicks with plenty of distance over the centre of the ground. They dash onto the ball, but first back there for the Saints is Fisher. He kicks out wide towards half-forward flank, very wide. McAvoy squares the ball in, and Gardner dives in low to take the mark. In the centre square, the Saints. Graham, kick inside, centre half-forward. Revolt is there. Milne actually beats him to the ball. Over his shoulder for goal. Hasn't got the distance. And a double fister out of there. And the ball seen over the line by Easton Wood for the Dogs. Out of bounds, throw in. Still no score.
Well, just quickly, Drew. Kazitsky led past Brian Lake. Brian Lake didn't even think about going with him and let him lead outside 50. It's a preliminary final, Brian. Playing your man.
Saints again deep forward. Gardner tries to fashion down a tap. It's gathered by Dempster, who's down in a tackle. It falls for Ray. Hurries the kick to full forward. Spoil made by Williams. Pushes it out in the back pocket. Milne and Morris again. All a little slippery over the turf. And again out of bounds.
Forgot how good Morris was when he wasn't on the side last week. He's been spectacular tonight. Hasn't had many kicks, but his touches around the ball, terrific.
7 scoreless minutes. Gardner, clearly the tap. Ward, though, the footy. Hand pass was loose. Milne paddles it to Ray. Hand pass to Schneider, trying to get the shot away. Kicks to the teeth of goal. Kaczynski, spoil made by Lake over the top. Goddard rushes at the crumb. He's offloaded, but he feeds the hand pass out to Revolt. Back to Graham. Kicks it into the pocket. 2 big men there. They're both Saints, and Gardner is granted right of way by Kaczynski.
How good a contest was that?
Great effort by Goddard.
So the first score should be registered by Michael Gardner. It is an extremely difficult shot, though. From the gutter, left forward pocket. Gardner kicks it, goal, it scores, behind. It hits the right-hand goal post. After looking pretty good, he's at rocking to and fro. 8 minutes to get that behind. That's all we have.
Well, if we go at this rate, Jared, we might not make 7 goals.
We're going to get a thriller, though. It stays like this. See, this time last night, Collingwood had kicked about 6. Kick in by Hargrave and a punch to the ball over the boundary line. And we have a throw in. Wind. Nothing like what it was last night. The flag's hanging limply. The rain has stopped. Actually, pretty good conditions, although the surface pretty slippy. I don't think you'll get too many running bounces here tonight. Boundary throw-in. Gardner just gets a toe poke to the ball. In there is Morris. He's taken to ground. Wow, there's a heavy collision there. And a high tackle is laid on Ray against his old team. Free kick. Quickly, he gets the hand pass away to Hayes. Oh, Revolt, a magnificent leap and a mark that 55 from goal.
Yeah, quick play on, gives Nick a chance up there. They kick the ball high, and the athleticism of this man just shown there perfectly. Just put his body in front, up high in the air, but quick play on. That's the key. Get it in there quickly.
Gee, he seemed to get a lift and then hover in the air. That was fantastic. With a ball that's got to be a bit slippery. He is right in front at the city end, and he'll be kicking from about 40 metres. Revolt for the first goal of the night. And he's hooked it left. A very bad miss for Revolt. 2 behinds the Saints. Dogs yet to score.
Harbrow to kick in for the Dogs. He goes long and strong as best he can. The pack flies. It spills to the front. Ball to be won. Graham went one way, Eagleton the other. Ward went at it, kicked it the wrong way. It falls for Del Santo. He fires at goal and misses the lot. He hits the behind post on the full. No score. Adam White.
Lindsay Gilby back on, so no concern there with the knee. Starting to get quite a few of the key midfielders coming off for their first break. They are spent. No goals being kicked, but lots of energy being spent.
So Brian Lake to bring it in. He goes by hand, misses the target. Revolt gathers and snaps the goal from inside the goal square. Oh, it was touched.
It was touched off the body.
Touched. It might have even been touched by his teammate who got in the way. But Lake's hand pass was I've got to say, a limp-wristed hand pass went straight to the opposition.
That was a very odd moment. Picken kicks it around the members' wing. She didn't pick any target there. Straight to Fisher. Gives it to Gwilt. Kicks the Saints back to half forward. Murphy spoils Goddard. And the droppers Graham to Kaczynski. Kick partially smothered by Murphy. It flops up to the 50. Morris's hand pass is smothered. It lands with Harbrow. They are kicking it blindly and in an absolute panic at the moment, the Dogs. Fisher easily onto the loose ball, delivers into the midfield. Mark taken by McQualter, kicks to half forward. Del Santo has it 55 out. Onto the left boot, revolts his target, can't hang on. Williams close late. Brad Johnson onto the crumb, hand pass to Harm. They should open it up, the Dogs off half back. Through Hargrave to Boyd, boots it long, Hall and Gwilt. Gwilt used the body well, but he didn't hang on to the mark. Hall trying to drag Gwilt off it. No whistle on the play. Fisher's the reinforcements and the Saints survive.
Fisher rode a good bump from Hall as well. And Del Santo's pass is glorious onto the chest of Graham, forward of the wing.
Well done.
Oh, smothered there beautifully by Gilby of the Dogs, who gathers the ball. Hand pass back to Williams. Plenty of pressure. Williams, a poor hand pass. Up in the air and not to a teammate. A contest at half forward here for the Saints. Milne dives in. Hand passes along the line, but the ball was out of play. Well, we haven't had a goal in the game in 12 and a quarter minutes, but boy, have some players been taking some bruises in this contest.
Yeah, St Kilda dominating contested possessions though, dominating them, and the game's being played on their terms.
At the boundary throw-in, McAvoy, but comes down to Griffin of the Dogs. He fights at ground level. Spilled at Dempster, little hand pass. Jones comes back to McAvoy, a high ball inside the 50. Contest 40 metres from goal. It comes through to Kaczynski, who gets the hand pass away to Eddie, who's kicked no distance on it, and Lake marks on the point of the goal square.
They need to get themselves a reprieve here, the Dogs, and running the length of the field wouldn't be a bad effort. Eagleton Mark gave it off to Hargrave. Kicks it up now to the wing. Mark taken by Addison. Hand pass back. Eagleton. He darts forward, has a bounce, took him on, ran to the logo, blasted it in long, but he didn't direct it well. He put it behind Hall. Dawson drops the mark, has time to feed the hand pass to Gwilt. Out and out of Fisher. Fisher looks up the southern wing whence it came. Kicks it for Eddie. Terrific little mark. Tries to come inboard. Gives it to Gilbert. Open forward set up. Milne's on the run. The ball lands ahead of him and goes end over endo. Out of play. 13 and a half gone. 3 behinds only to the Saints.
Yeah, but they lead the contested possessions 25-12.
And the inside 50s 7-2. dominating, but leading by only 3 points. At the boundary throw-in, comes to the Dogs. Griffin, little hand pass to Lake. Hand pass to Cross, back to Griffin. They haven't advanced the ball. Griffin a bit slow, nearly run down by Schneider. At the bootlaces of Hargrave, but he does well to trap it. And kicks it long to centre wing, but straight to the opposition. And the mark's been taken by Fisher, who comes in short and finds Ray. Further short pass, just a little bit too high for Graham, who can't take the mark. It's grabbed by Hahn, who thought he was dropped, and he's back on the side. Gets the hand pass away. It comes to Ward, up to midfield. Contests everywhere, a turnover, but a good tackle has been laid on Peak, and the crowd wants a free kick, for the Bulldogs crowd at least, for the tackle by Cross, but umpire calls for it and will ball it up. Umpire Steve McBurney tonight with Michael Bozzo and Matt Stevick.
Nothing from the Thrum. Nothing but tackles, that is. A lot of congestion around the footy. Wide of the circles, Hudson wins the tap. Hayes roosts it off the ground though, deep forward. Lake flies at fullback, controls the ball to ground, kicks the Doggies outside the defensive area. Gilby marks, looks to break. The switch is onto Eagleton. Del Santo closes, but Eagleton takes the mark. Needs the next target. Hand pass to Williams, kicks to half forward. Hart is on the lead, let it bounce. Wilt ties him up, works the hand pass out to Picken. He's dragged over the boundary by Goddard. Boundary umpire saw it, and it'll be tossed in. Adam White.
The mail during the week at the Win Over was that Brian Lake had a much better week on the training track. Seems to be getting over his injuries. He's certainly moving a lot better tonight.
3 points to nil after nearly 16 minutes at the boundary throw-in. It comes to Ward. Chain of hand passes, finishing up with Wood. There's going to be a free kick advantage for the Dogs. The pass goes to Gilby. 50 out. Lindsay Gilby for goal, and has missed to the left-hand side. It's their first score after 16 minutes. They trailed by just 2 points.
Kick in is not very tidy. Addison makes the spoil, steals the footy. Hand pass back to Eagleton. The pressure comes. Eagleton retreats. Hand pass to Boyd. Pops it up the full forward. Yes, it works. Hahn is out to take the mark.
Great kick, right to the right spot.
Well, Dillison Addison's work to spoil the ball on Gilbert first, but to keep the ball in, kept the ball alive inside 50. You called before the game, tackles inside 50 and actually keeping the ball alive.
Mitch Hahn, the late call up for the first goal. He's got it. The Dogs with a morale booster. It took 17 minutes to come up with a major, and it's the underdog Dogs who have it. 1-1-7 to 3 behind.
Well, it's against the flow, but they're the ones that count. That's a real morale booster for Hahn. I was critical of him a little bit earlier. I thought he really could have run hard and marked the ball, but he let it bounce. Significant thing to me then was the Bulldogs' preparedness when they looked to be panicking to take a risk and kick the ball across to this side of the ground, which went to Eagleton. They were just going down the other side. The St Kilda defenders were able to pick them off. It was a bit of flair, and the end result is some really good work, forward pressure down there. But boy, gee, isn't that going to lift their confidence, because St Kilda had the run of the play, burnt some opportunities, and they've kicked the first.
Bounce in the middle, clean possession, Hudson. He roofs the ball up towards half forward. Hahn gathers again. And now has to soccer off the ground. He gives it just enough to land it in the field of play, and it skims on the turf, out of bounds on the first bounce, and a bit of push and shove down there. And these Bulldogs aren't going to be pushed around. Actually, Farron Ray, who's playing against his old side, he's in there with a bit of jump and pulling as well. Dogs with the only goal of the game. Almost clean possession in there. Hargrave, little kick across the ground, taken by Schneider of the Saints. To Montagna, to Blake, to Graham, and Graham breaks from halfback with a kick towards half forward. Lake has a break on Kazitsky. Ball sits up well for Brian Lake. He burns off Cozzy. Hand passes high, but goes all right to Gilby. Lindsay Gilby into the middle of the ground. He might have turned it over. Oh, gee, almost a mark to Addison. He played it well. He's done a couple of tough things. Ball finishes up with Harbrow. He breaks from midfield over the head of Johnson. It comes to the back to Hahn. Jono's a chance. He's on the 50. He paddles back to Grant, and now back to Hahn.
Harbrow tries to get in there as well. It's ricocheting around. Eagleton to Grant. Had a fumble. Caught by Quill. Dumped into the turf. Footy comes out. Hayes' hand pass wasn't particularly good. Had to go again, and he got Colin. Taken high by Griffin.
It's good
stuff, though, this.
It is, and you can see the Dogs just starting to believe. Never mind all the rhetoric of the week. They're just starting to soak it in. Hayes to Fisher across the full back line and out now to Blake. Works it out around the line for Ray. Ray will settle himself over a kick on the southern wing. They're all manned up ahead. So backward he'll have to go. Blake into the centre square for Gilbert. Jones is offering. Gilbert's not interested. Prepared to sit on the footy. We're about to hit time on of the opening two. Kick for Gwilts. 1-1 to 3 behinds the Dogs lead. Gwilt to the southern wing. Painstaking build-up. Blake got loose. Mark played on deep forward. Murphy against Milne. It cleared them all. Peak at the back. Couldn't gather it. Lake goes over and he's just a little slow to rise. It is a behind to add to St Kilda's telly. They have 4 of them. 1-1-7 the Dogs.
Hargrave to kick in. 20 minutes played in a pulsating preliminary final. The winner to play Collingwood next week in the Granny. Hargrave to himself and then clears the 50, but straight to the opposition. Fisher drops a mark he should have gobbled, but recovers well. Snaps it back inside the 50. Milne hugs a chest mark right in front, 35 metres from goal. Smallest bloke there took a mark inside 50. How does that happen?
I just watched Brian Lake stand next to the bloke who kicked out then, and it was just he stood there and actually made no attempt to help his teammate whatsoever by making space, by pushing some pressure on the opposition. It's terrible.
Milne for the Saints first. He's kicked it. St Kilda hit the front again. 1-4 to 1-1.
No, it's about the little things that count. And the little thing that Brian Lake didn't do there was actually stood there and thought about himself on his haunches. I'm a bit tired. You know what? He should have ran up the ground and made some pressure on someone else so that Hargraves could have a chance to kick out properly. All of a sudden it was kicked to Fisher, who just banged it straight back in. And there was no contest at all after that kick out. Straight to Milne on the chest. He doesn't miss from 35. He's a very lively little forward. Done very well, Milne. Been right in the hunt here today.
Robert Murphy is manning him up, so he's on the back line. Murphy, everyone here suggested he should be on the forward line, and he's conceded one.
It won't be long.
Saints by 3 points. Hudson and Gardner. Boyd is with Hayes. Ward has Del Santo. Montagna and Cross. That was the setup. Ward gets first possession to Cross, who was on his haunches when he fed out a hand pass to Jan Siracusa. Ball went up and down. Barely 15, but Goddard leaps in and has paid the mark. He's up and on the spread. Schneider was lurking. The kick is too strong for him, but out on the members' wing, Fisher will be able to gather. Work it up the line. Dainty kick. Didn't quite come off. Graham and Hargrave. Hargrave rips it clear for the Dogs and boots it long. Needs Grant. Takes it in the fingertips. Looks at the forward setup. Has to kick to Johnson. Half volley. Jono the veteran. Hand passed under pressure. Got taken high. But he's back in the centre square. And there are numbers getting back deep. He kicks for Hall, worked out of it by Blake. It's on at the back. Grant has it, spins, snaps, goals! Jared Grant comes in from the September cold. And the Dogs are back in front. 2-1-13, St Kilda 1-4-10. We've gone 22 and a half.
When the ball came over the first time to Jared Grant on the wing, he actually had his player on the St Kilda's goal side, so he should have taken him on the first time. But what he did do, once he kicked that ball, which was quite a poor kick to Brad Johnson, lucky Brad got a free kick. Once Brad kicked it inside 50, guess who was there? It was this kid. It was Jared Grant's ability to be able to burn his opponents off. Whilst he should have done it the first time, he got the reward the second time. Opponent couldn't stay with him, ran into the pocket, very good snap, wet ball across his body.
Jared Grant, he kicked 6 goals against Essendon in round 22, but his 2 finals games were his worst of the year. That's a real confidence booster for him in the first quarter. At the bounce in the middle, Ward kicks the Dogs forward towards half forward. It bounces off the shin and goes St Kilda's way. Bit of body work off the ball. Hayes wins a tough ball in there. Gets it to Gilbert. Not a great hand pass. And, it's eventually tidied up by Del Santo to Hayes. Little hand pass away to Montagna. He's got a man out in space, but the kick is too high. It hovered in the air a long time. Eventually, Eddie's good enough to get there. Goes for the short pass inside the 50. Sliding in Schneider. It comes to Montagna. He's dragged down from behind by Cross. Clash of heads. Murphy.
He's right.
Looked as though he didn't even feel it, and now it's going to be a ball up, a tangle of arms and legs, 40 metres from goal. It's 13-10. The Dogs lead by 3. A ripping first quarter.
Eddie and Murphy, just the ferocious collision on the slippery turf. From the clearance, cross toward the Dogs go forward. Cut off by Fisher. Didn't mark though. Jono's coming through. Hand pass out near Grant. St Kilda though had the numbers. Dawson a steady head. Feeds the hand pass out to Peak. Blasts them to half forward. Kosicki is loose. He's 55 from goal. He backs away and with his absolute best is not without a hope. Kosicki winds up on the right boot. It's not even close to his best. It falls 10 short off hands. Oh, Milne out of the air. He volleyed to behind. 1-5-11 St Kilda, 2-1-13 the Dogs. We've gone 25.
Just been keeping an eye on the Revolt and Williams matchup. I tell you, Tom Williams physically is staying with him. He's been able to keep up with him in most contests so far.
Rob Murphy kicks to himself and then kicks long. Lake out marks Kosicki, and Lake passes to half forward. A bullet. Paul can't quite mark under pressure from Zach Dawson. Paul loses some ground. Hand passes back to Lake. So the full forward hand passing to the full back. Lake a little hand pass away to Griffin. Griffin's kick. Half volley for Addison. He does well to gather, but is caught in a good tackle. I reckon he should have been pink for holding it. The ball just fell out of his arms, grabbed by Griffin. Kick smothered. It spills to Hall up near centre wing. He works it back to Ward. Puts it out wide to Addison. Back to Griffin. And Griffin short pass just too high for Brad Johnson. It goes over his head and out of bounds at half forward. Under pressure, some of the disposals are going astray, but you can't blame it. The pressure in this final is fantastic. 13-11, the Dogs lead.
And it's out half forward on the throw-in. Minson and McAvoy, neither laid a glove on it. Came to the back. Minson dives in. Hand pass to Griffin. Kicks in a hurry. Floats inside the 50. Hall against Dawson. Hall got rid of Dawson but failed to complete the mark. Blake is knocked over by Hart. He's trapped over the ball. The umpire says, give it to me. It'll be tossed up 35 out from the Dogs' goal. Attacking the punt road end in the opening term. Thrown up. Minson swipes it into the corridor. Peak. He bumbled that kick forward. Eddie's knocked off it. Johnson has it. Wedges out a kick into the pocket. Oh, Picken got blatantly pushed over by Goddard. No free kick. Goddard kicks his ball out to the defensive 50. Cut off by Murphy. Back into the pocket. The Dogs were queuing up and Picken takes the mark.
Well, Picken playing a defensive role on Goddard deep forward and might finish up with a goal out of it.
7 goals to his name this season. The runner out to tell him to take the deliberate shot as the seconds tick away in the term. Picken from the boundary in the forward pocket. The kick is pretty good. It's all the way. And the Dogs establish the first mini break. They have 3. 3-1-19, St Kilda 1-5-11, 27 gone, Adam White.
Well, right, Gerardo, those last couple of goals, the body language on the bench of the Bulldogs players, they're up and about, lots of encouragement. St Kilda, just here from ground level, I don't know what you think, Mark, Stan and Chris, they're looking a little slow.
They do look a little slow, but they're hard at it, the Doggies. This is their last chance and they're playing like it. And what I loved about that was Robert Murphy's class. His real panache to actually pick up the ball and then look inside, and he saw people inside were all full, and then he saw Liam Picken on the boundary and he hit a pass that was just brilliant to him right on the boundary, and Picken, he didn't let him down. Young kid, just a terrific kick right through the middle.
Well, this is a surprise. Long outside as the Dogs in the middle. It is knocked down by Minson but doesn't clear the second circle, and the umpire will throw it up or bounce it again. 3-1 to 1 goal 5. The ump throws it up. Rove by Hayes. Little hand pass to Graham. Stationary start kick up towards centre half forward. A pack gathers. Punch down to the front. Any amount of Dogs, but between them they fumble. Cross the main culprit there.
Vince.
Ball's not back. Goes to Williams.
Get out of the road, Will.
Dogs breaking from half-back. Hahn, a little hand pass to Murphy, who's done some fine things on the forward line, but back on the back line now. Now he's got Revolt, and the pass finds Ward, still deep inside defensive 50 for the Dogs. Kick by Ward out towards Hahn.
He virtually told Hahn, for heaven's sake, give me a lead, and he's kicked it into him. Hahn was standing there like a statue, not wanting to give him anything.
Hahn replaced the kid Andrew Hooper in the selected side.
Long kick around the wing, all about territory. Onto the crumb goes Eagleton, seconds ticking away. The siren will beat the ball. The siren beats the ball. Jan Syracuse was getting to a point where he was going to mark. All to no avail, but the Dogs have had the better of the opening stanza. And their fans rise. And that hope you heard before the opening siren is very much being harnessed by the Bulldogs right now. 3-1-19 the Dogs to St Kilda 1-5-11. The term went 29 minutes and a tick. The goal kickers Grant, Hahn and Picken for the Western Bulldogs, and Milne as the lone major for the Saints. Adam White.
Fascinating what happened then, Gerard, because the Bulldogs players knew how much time was left, because Rodney Eade was barking instructions right back to when Hahn had it. That was slow it down, don't lose possession of the footy. Because of the long kick, because of the contest when Eagleton had it, they needed to go quicker. If Hahn had kicked it 3 seconds earlier, maybe another Bulldogs goal.
It's the Bulldogs by 8 points at quarter time. This is all unfolding on Grandstand AFL here on ABC Local Radio, Radio Australia, News Radio and Digital Radio.
In April 2008, John Fain and his son Jack closed the door on their Melbourne home, leaving jobs, studies, family and friends, and went overland to London in their trusty four-wheel drive. This intelligent and funny book recalling the countries they visited, people they met and trouble they got into, is also the story of a tender father-son relationship. From Here to There by 774's John Fain is available now from ABC shops, centres, good bookshops and online.
Grandstand AFL.
Pops it up the full forward. Yes, it works. Hahn is out to take the mark.
Great kick, right to the right spot.
Mitch Hahn, the late call up for the first goal. He's got it. The Dogs with a morale booster.
Snaps it back inside the 50. Milne hopes a chest mark right in front, 35 metres from goal. Milne for the Saints first. He's kicked it.
He kicks for Hall, worked out of it by Blake. It's on at the back. Grant has it. Spins. Snap. Goal. Jared Grant comes in from the September cold. Cut off by Murphy. Back into the pocket. The Dogs were queuing up. And Picken takes them up. Picken from the boundary in the forward pocket. The kick is pretty good. It's all the way.
Grandstand AFL on ABC Local Radio.
Dogs by 8 in a terrific opening term. Stan Elves, Chris Grant, Mark McClure.
Well, we have a contest, guys, and that's what we wanted, wasn't it? And I think the crowd were appreciative of both teams. Slippery ball, the contest, the ability for players to be able to hit, put their ball over the, put their head over the ball was just absolutely paramount, and it started right from the opening bounce. Lenny Hayes on numerous occasions, massive hit on Robert Murphy. Guess what he did? He got to his feet. A really telling sign about the psyche of the Western Bulldog players. A player gets a really big hit, he's got his head over the ball and he bounces straight back up again. Great sign for the doggies. The early part of the contest we felt was all St Kilda. They pumped it inside 50. At one stage inside 50s was 7-2, but then it was an arm wrestle. We had 5 minutes of just courageous football from both teams, and as I say, the midfielders of both teams look like they're going to have the say in the contest. Williams has Revolt. The slippery conditions are making it hard for them to be able to hit Revolt up on those leads, and that's playing into the Bulldogs' defensive hand. Brian Lake needs to tighten up on his opponent. A couple of times Kaczynski was the one who got out, and Brian Lake wanted a goal keep. He stayed inside 50 and Kaczynski marked outside of 50. You can't allow that to happen. You've got to have confidence in your teammates that they can do their job one-on-one. The second half of that quarter, the Bulldogs fought back. They started to win the stoppages, and they started to be able to pump the ball inside 50 more often. They took them on. They actually took them on. It was Jared Grant at one stage. Didn't want to take him on the first time. Guess what he did the second time? He learnt by his mistake, got the ball over the back the second time and just burn his opponent off. That's what he needs to be able to do. Slippery conditions or not, someone still has to be able to follow a quick player like that. But gee, we have a contest. We have a fantastic contest. The crowd are involved. The tackle count was still a concern for the Dogs. We think we're looking at St Kilda 27-13 at this stage. So the Dogs have just got to be able to get that tackle count up a little bit more than that. As that tackle count continues to grow, the gap grows, you'd think that St Kilda will be able to get the ball forward more often than not. But gee, Stan, it's a terrific contest so far.
That's exactly what it is, Chris. And boy, was it tough early. Just looked up, we had some matchups all over the ground. Blokes were given jobs and things like that, but players just putting their body on the line, just playing like you'd expect in a final where they want to get to the next week, and it was just absolutely sensational. Early on, to me, it was just St Kilda. St Kilda seemed to control the game. The ball was played more in their forward half. They were just putting pressure on, dominating contested possessions and tackles, as you mentioned. I thought both sides playing a loose man back in defence. Fisher for St Kilda, Hargraves for the Western Bulldogs. But I thought that Fisher was probably the more clean and everything like that, able to get the footy in, and that the things looked dangerous, didn't it? When Rewald at the 10-minute mark took that big chest mark, you thought, wow, this is fantastic. But then the critical thing is you can dominate all those possessions, you can do all those fantastic things, but you've got to hurt them on the scoreboard, and they missed opportunities. And to me, I just sensed that the Bulldogs will realise that. We've soaken up the pressure, we haven't been hurt on the scoreboard, and then all of a sudden they opened the game up. They opened the game up, got some run outside from Eagleton. Those type of players started to get the ball in the forward line, and then a touch of magic, I thought, from Murphy. That bit of play by Murphy that got the one to pick, and I agree with you, young Grant's ability to actually run and demand the footy, get to the second F and kick that goal, and it's an amazing situation. They've built in confidence, and now St Kilda really know they've got a game on their hands.
Jared Dameron.
Leading possession winners, Sam Fisher 10, Hayes 9, Del Santo, Montagna, Graham 6, and for Western Bulldogs, Kellen Ward 10, Boyd and Hargrave 9, Blake Griffin, Hahn and Eagleton all 7. St Kilda have kicked 1 goal in their 13 entries inside 50, Bulldogs 3 from their 9 entries inside 50.
It's the Dogs by 8 points on Grandstand AFL, second term underway. Gardner the tap it, Boyd onto the footy, Cross lost it, Revolt came off centre half forward to gather in the middle, and kick it inside the 50 and off hands, Milne pinched it, hand pass sideways, on to Kazitsky, he goes over, still gets it out to Schneider, swings it at goal, they went the long way round and they came up short. What an odd moment.
Kazitsky wasn't ready for him.
Lake took the mark. Oh, his kick across the face of goal is pretty dodgy. Knocked on by Gilbert, who really couldn't mark. There's a free kick and a heavy collision. Kazitsky, he was the aggressor. He's the slower to rise. Wood is the recipient of the free kick.
He got him right up the middle.
He did. Easton Wood has cleaned up Cozzy, who is not too good. His awareness, just you worry sometimes. Kick towards centre wing, mark drop by Gian Syracuse, a hand pass off to Grant, who's quick. Kick by Grant is beautiful. Hahn a mile in the clear. Mark 65 from goal. Kicks long, 2 against 2. Hall is there. No mark, it comes to the back. Barry still a chance. He dashes out. What a pickup. Out forward pocket. The hand pass back towards the corridor. Ward, a little hand pass to Johnson. He's upended and he'll get a free kick.
Jono was bad then. He should have got to the front of the pack. He was standing on the wrong side. Hall trying to make the contest. Oh, but they've turned it over.
The free kick was to Zach Dawson, who went by hand to Montagna, and he's kicked it out of bounds on the full. Kazitsky coming to the bench right in front of you, Whitey.
Yeah, he is. He doesn't look too bad, but maybe just a little bit out of sorts. I reckon 5 minutes he'll be back on.
Ward, the kick down the line is perfect, and Brad Johnson has taken a mark about 48 metres from goal on the white line. We've seen him kick impossible goals.
It's not a hard angle from this side. I think we mentioned last week that the goals really open up once you actually get to this spot, so he's not without a chance here.
Brad Johnson in his 364th game. Gets mobile, kicks from about 47. Oh, it's a beautiful looking kick, just slightly across the face. Comes off hands into the post and through for a minor score. But the awareness of Justin Kazitsky, he wasn't ready for the hand pass to start and then was absolutely cleaned up by a kid who's just making his way in the game, Easton Wood.
Kick into Dempster, gives it off to Hayes, spreads it back to Dempster. He lofted it, but Dempster backed himself, pulled it in. Oh, his hand pass no good. It missed Graham. Montagna, though, to clean it up, make it better than it was. The chase is on. Grant nearly got him. Montagna kicks inside the 50. Milne work, he'll be under it. Milne off the ground. It's on target. It's rolling, and Lake cuts it off, goalkeeper style. Takes on a tackle and slips it and
well
kicks
played.
it out of defence. It's got to be marked, though, and Addison does. The play off the last line works. Addison hung it up. Boyd got clobbered as he attempted to mark. Fisher arrived, made it hurt. Gave away the free kick. And Boyd just pauses with the footy. The Dogs leading by 9.
Brilliant play by Brian Lake, not prepared to concede a behind because this game could be decided by a point. Centre wing, marking contest. Crumbs gathered here by Hudson out to Johnson. A pass and the ball marks 45 metres from goal. He ran back to take his kick with his back to goal, and he had a man, Gian Siracusa, unmarked in the goal square, who now offers a lead, but Big Barry is going to go for goal. Well, this will be for his 80th goal of the season, which is phenomenal considering he retired last year pretty much in disgrace at the Sydney Swans. He gets to 50. We're right behind this, and it just misses to the right-hand side and through for a minor score. So the Dogs, 3 goals to 20, lead St Kilda 1-5-11. The weight of money in the bookmakers still thought Saints were favourite at quarter time, even though they trailed by 8 points.
Adam White.
Justin Kazitsky's actually gone downstairs to the medical room. I think he might have had a little bit of vomiting action going on. So his cage has just been rattled a little bit, but I still think he'll come back on.
So blood rules, Zach Dawson leaves the field. That's the delay on the kick-in. Just a bloodied nose. Goddard now to kick in. Play ready to resume.
Massive press. Yeah. Everybody's pushed up into the Bulldogs forward half.
Goddard's got to kick it long and wide. Rebold. Right. Left. Didn't bring it in. And it's a turnover at the drop. Kicked out of there by Fisher. Blindly round the wing. Hudson fumbled. Graham got skittled by Hudson as he knocked it forward. The Dogs win possession. Wood to Boyd. Shocking. Absolutely terrible. And Schneider will run 70 metres into the opening goal on the turnover. That's ghastly by the Dogs. Schneider kicks St Kilda's sick. 2-5-17 to the Bulldogs. 3-3-21.
Well, they just sweat on you, the Saints. You make a little blue, and especially in the area of around half forward, and you try and bring it back into the centre of the ground. Missed Harbrow by 2 or 3 foot. Schneider just pounced, had one bounce. Rewalt ran behind him and did exactly what he was supposed to do. Shepherd him through, call him on, make certain he was clear, and make certain of the goal. And they did that. But the poor handball, you will pay every time by the Saints, because they are very good at this.
You said the Dogs are poor tacklers. I know it was a poor handball by Boyd, but Harbrow should have made a better fist of the tackle on Schneider too. He just slipped him, just put his hands out there really.
And we talked about the press up the ground. It made it wide open for Schneider once he got possession. Hudson wins in the middle down to Cross. The whistle's gone. It's going to be a Dogs free kick. It'll come back to Cross.
It's paid the advantage.
No, it was advantage. Okay, so Gio has it now. Down towards half forward. It penetrates the 50 and overhead. The mark has been taken here.
Griffin.
By
Is it Griffin?
Addison. And he's about 40 metres from goal, Dylan Addison.
A pleasing thing from the Western Bulldogs' point of view is their younger players are prepared to run and provide options. They're not just going back in their shells. They're actually presenting up and taking advantage, because St Kilda are looking for the key players, and kids like this one are getting under their guard.
He missed 11 weeks, but he's back at the right time of the year in the finals, and Addison steers the goal. A beautiful kick from pretty wide out, that's 45 metres, and the Bulldogs charge further ahead, 4-3 to 2-5.
Well, Addison's down there to do a tagging role, really. He's playing that half-forward flanking tagging role on, at this stage, I think he was trying to get hold of Gilbert, and the Bulldog players are just letting him know at the moment. They've all walked past Gilbert and say, that's your man. And the reason Addison was in that spot was because Gilbert thought the ball was going to go long. He didn't think it was going to go to his opponent. He didn't respect the fact that Addison could kick a goal. Well, he's just kicked the goal on him and makes up for the poor turnover only moments before. The first stoppage the Dogs got, they thrust it forward and a goal scored. So we're back to where they were 5 minutes ago.
Chris Grant on grandstand AFL. Justin Kosicki back on the ground. The Dogs by 10. Goddard first possession to Hayes to McAvoy out of the middle. They give a bit of ground to Blake. Sets it up to half forward. Out in front was Eddie. Couldn't complete the mark. On at the back. Tackle is laid on Wood. He's dispossessed out against the boundary and the ball slips away. So be tossed in. Left half forward for the Saints. Attacking the punt road end. McAvoy and Minson dance around each other a bit. Knocked to the front of that pack. Goddard goes over. Trying to break his way through was Ray. He's held a little too long, but he never had it. Farron Ray with the free kick. Forward to the middle. Joe with the dabbed pass. Out to Jones. Kicked it off the instep. Awful ball inside the 50.
That's a free kick.
Committed himself. Hayes went right into him. Hayes a bit lucky he didn't make better contact or he wouldn't have been fronting up no matter what happened next week. Griffin received the hand pass. Kicked into the middle of the ground. Murphy's onto a loose ball. Turns and looks up. Kicks it well for Hahn. Minson's running forward. Hahn goes in that direction. Minson camps himself. Had a bite. At the back. Kicked off the ground by Eagleton in a running race with Ray. They're out against the boundary. Eagleton soccers to the goal front. Gwilt and Grant. It spills away from them and out of play 10 metres around from the behind post.
It looks like Murphy might have gone forward.
Yeah, and a ball meant for Barry Hall. What's Minson doing getting in the way? Here's a throw in. Minson against McAvoy. Minson works it down. But Goddard clears for the Saints. Out in open spaces, close to the boundary line. Revolt well up the ground. Takes possession, slung over the boundary line, and it's out of play. 4-3-27. The Dogs lead by 10 points. The Saints 2-5-17. Throw in. Minson against McAvoy again. Underfoot, socket forward by Picken. Close to the boundary line. Montagna a little hand pass to Gwilt. His hand pass pretty slick, taken by Graham. Hayes does a 360 and kicks towards centre wing. Past Revolt it goes. Williams is there. Tries to backhand the ball away. Spills to Graham of the Saints. His kick is smothered by a teammate who was half a metre away. It spills to Robbie Murphy. He slung to ground in the tackle. Picked up by Hahn, who's been a good inclusion, but his kick is astray and the mark's taken by Zach Dawson in defence for the Saints.
Dawson guides it out to half-back with a kick. Oh, McAvoy dropped it. Now seeing a few clangers here and Gilbert's in a two-man tackle. That is holding the ball. It'll be Jared Grant who comes up with it 70 metres away from goal.
They've added tackling to their game, Granty.
Gilby makes a break. Grant is going to go deeper. He's going to put it right to the hot spot. Hall arrives at the pack. It's off hands. Montagna to Hayes. Unimpeded out of halfback. Hand pass to Graham and back to Hayes. Wrong foots the tackle in Wood. Sets it up for Mill. Morris has got to go and he does. Morris makes a meaningful spoil and he'll get his own crumb. Shovels it forward and has support from Ward. Really big win for Morris there. Now to convert it. Kicked by Ward into the middle of the ground for Gilby. The spread is on. Addison is loose. Runs it half forward. Guides it onto the chest of Rob Murphy.
It's the only player who came forward. They all rushed back towards goal, hoping it's their chance to kick a goal. You must come at the player to open the space behind.
This is built on the work of Dale Morris and can be converted by Rob Murphy. This will test him. 51 metres away. He gives it the lot. It's across the face. It onto the line. Minson knocks it into the field of play. Dempsey got caught with it. Holding the ball. No. Rushed behind. He threw that away, did he not? It's the Dogs by 11.
Paid the price for being in the forward goal square. But holding the ball is holding the ball.
Oh, blimey, that was holding the ball.
Yep. Goddard kicks in, gets plenty of distance. Kaczynski has a fumble below his knees and the ball finishes up over the boundary line and a throw-in. We're getting a much better game here than many people thought. And the underdogs are in front. 4-4-28 to 2-5-17. An 11-point lead to the Bulldogs. 12 and a half minutes played in the second quarter. It comes to Del Santo. Hand pass astray. Taken by Ward. He puts the hand pass out in front of Cross. He punched the ball to Eagleton, who snaps for goal and is offline. Disappointing kick by Nathan Eagleton. And Dawson marks in defence for the Saints.
Dawson goes long looking for Peake, who's made a breaking lead outside the defensive 50. Eddie's the next target. He can't mark going back. It's all on the spill. Gilby knocks it toward the boundary and then bumps Eddie over and gets it all the way out of play. Southern side of the grounds. Dogs by 11. 4 goals to 2. 13 minutes into the second term at the throw-in. Minson and Gardner. Minson took a swipe at it. Had a kick at it. Didn't go far. Graham missed his target. Peake. It's back out of play.
All-Australian Goddard, just 6 possessions. 13 minutes into the second quarter.
Yeah, Pickens got him.
Hudson trotting over to join the ruck contest. So the Dogs will have 2 ruckmen here. Hudson knocks it down, cross onto it, feeds it to Minson, flops it up to half forward, past Johnson and Fisher. It spills out the side of them. Gilbert tackled by Addison, kicked out of there by Jones. It's out against the boundary again, and in fact all the way across.
28-17. Bulldogs appalling record in preliminary finals. So far, they're turning it around. Throw in. Gardner over the top. Beautiful palm down to Montagna. He kicks the Saints towards half forward. Revolt actually got caught behind Morris, but wins a possession, gets the hand pass out. McWalter hasn't been sighted. He goes to ground. Caught by Hargrave. Balances the umpire. Spills to Gilby, who kicks back into the pack. And this will be a ball up inside the centre square. Umpire McBurney to sort it out. 28-17. And we've played 14 and a half minutes in the second quarter.
Well, none of us expected a contest like this. No one in the ground did.
At the stoppage, players pile in. Goddard pushed in the back. Brendan Goddard's free kick, and he should be able to create the play. He puts it out in front of Revolt, too far out in front of him. It bounces twice. The champ reaches it onto the left boot, screws it into the corridor, cut off by Harbrow. He's waited the kick for half-back. It sat there over the top of Addison. Gwilt made the spoil. Montagna dispossessed. They burrow for it. Graham against Picken, against Gwilt, against Minson. In the midst of 4, it stops.
Gee, they rate Morris, don't they? 1 minute he's on Milne doing a job on him, and now they've given him Revolt. He's gone to Revolt for a rest.
Tossed up without hesitation. Cross bangs it clear of the pack. Eagleton overruns it. Bit of a blunder. Eddie to Del Santo. Caught in the tackle. Got it off to Montagna. Backward to Graham. Further back to Goddard. Under pressure. Gets his kick away. It's a marking contest. Revolt with a couple of feet late. So graceful his arrival.
And they've got a couple of players free here. Ward has been outstanding. Marks has a bounce on the slippery surface and kicks to Johnson, who's the spoilers put on Jono in midfield. Ward had followed up. Well played, son. It's near the circles, taken by Ray of St Kilda to Montagna. High hand pass over to Peake to Hayes. Hayes steers the pass looking for Revolt. Too wide of him. Gilby with Revolt now. Gilby with a good bump to the side of the great man and beats him. Gathers off the deck, has a bounce, kicks towards centre wing. The Doggies playing inspired football, but the kick comes up short of Eagleton. Wilt has it for the Saints, kicks long towards the 50. Revolt there but can't mark. At the back, Harbrow for the Dogs. He gathers, wheels around. 2 or 3 bounces they've had in the last few minutes. Harbrow has 3 bounces, so the turf must be drying off, and he kicks outside the 50. Griffin takes the mark. Low scoring, but thrilling. The Dogs by 11 points at the 16.5-minute mark of the second quarter.
Griffin kicks it backward to Harbrow. Intent to pause things for a moment. Hargrave presents. The kick didn't reach him, so Hargrave has to turn and go. He kicks up the line. Grant and Blake, it clears them. At the back, Jones. Ward comes at him. Jones guides the hand pass to Gwilt, who kicks it up out on the full. Dogs ball on the members' wing. The mark is right back in the middle of the interchange gates. Addison on the long kick, hugs the boundary. They fly. Dawson got hands to it, couldn't pull it in. Against the boundary, over the boundary. Whitey, Lenny Hayes was a bit slow to rise from a heavy collision.
That's exactly right. He got his kick away and then got met solidly and was down for a good 5 seconds, then got up and went to the next contest, as only Lenny Hayes can do. So I think he's fine.
Gardner wins the boundary throw in, works the ball to Goddard. Goddard's kick bounces to Revolt at half forward, gets some support from Schneider, who receives the hand pass. And his hand pass into McWalter, back to Schneider, short pass, and Revolt marks about 49 metres from goal. Well, they worked that really well. I'll give you a bolting statistic. Callan Ward is the leading possession winner on the ground with 16 possessions. Played a fantastic game. Averages 16 this season. Got him already. Revolt from 51. It's away to the right and comes up a bit short, and no problem to be punched away for the rush behind. Williams getting a fist of the ball. So the Dogs go to 4-5, leading the Saints 2-5.
Kick in, Harbrow into the back pocket.
I've given the score to the wrong team. It's 4-4 to 2-6.
10-point margin. Lake marked the kick in, and then his kick was pretty errant. He gave it straight up. Gilbert in to take the mark for the Saints. Right half forward. Nothing deliberate to kick out. He goes long and strong and straight back to Lake. And Revolt absolutely cracks it. Leaping up and down, waving a fist at Gilbert. Furious with the direction of it. Lake out to half back, tries his luck a second time, and this time Hahn arrives to take it.
Much better tonight, player, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh. Was he ever dropped? Was it a ploy, or did the sting work?
Hahn kicks around the southern wing. This is a poor effort. It's going to land amidst 3 Saints, and Fisher marks unopposed.
The poor kick, Jerry, but someone's got to make a contest on it. Equally important to just bring it to ground.
A lot of whistles, waving players to and fro and away. Fisher with nobody mounting the mark. Sends it up to half forward. Revolt's got 3 to beat. And Lake again glides in and marks and gives it off to Hargrave. The Bulldogs pull the switch, trying to open the play up. Cross marks across half back. Delivers out to Grant. St Kilda have a line set ahead of Grant. He flicks the hand pass to Griffin. Runs himself into a dead end. He's got to get out of it. Hand pass back to Hargrave with the pressure bearing down. The outlet kick is Minson on the wing.
Oh, settle down, Will.
Will went to play on.
Don't go inside there, son. Go down the line.
Minson is signalling. They're all saying kick it long down the line.
Oh,
he
wow.
obliges. It's not much of a kick. And Fisher does catch it at half back.
It was a wobbling, dipping kick.
Jared, some concerns here. Nick Del Santo had a chat with a doctor in the middle of the ground and then was escorted from the ground by the doctor straight down to the rooms. Not sure why. We'll find out later.
Oh, Graham kicks a shocker out of defence, and it's onto the chest of Griffin for the Bulldogs. Gets the hand pass away to Wood. Back to Griffin near the circles. He beats one and kicks out wide towards half forward. Johnson is there, gathers the bouncing ball, but then has a bit of a fumble and might lose it. But it spills to Gilby. Short pass. Well, it was all set up for Wood, but a good spore put on by Ray. Clint Jones over it. And the ball on the 50. I think this is going to be
There's an injury. Is that Johnson?
Johnson in lots of pain on the left half forward flank. Doctors, medical team, they're coming from everywhere.
Oh no, surely the Dogs
got a hit in the ribs.
Aren't going to win the game.
It's not a leg injury.
He'll miss the grand final.
He's got a whack in the ribs. Now he's trying to push the trainers away.
Lenny Hayes has the free kick at centre half back for the Saints. He comes out wide and the mark's taken by Gilbert. Gilbert kicks to half forward. Schneider in front. Lake punches away with a kick. And it's seen over the boundary line by Gian Siracusa, and we'll have a throw in. Multiple interchanges. Morris comes back on. The Dogs' best, Callan Ward, comes back on after a brief rest, and Brad Johnson shrugged off the trainers and jogged to the bench right in front of you, Whitey.
Yeah, he looks in a bit of pain, but he has been able to run to the bench, which is a good sign.
Dogs by 10. Ward straight back into the action, although he's dispossessed before he can add to the disposal tally. It's lost under everyone. So Brian Lake, who's looked the most injured man in September until tonight. tonight. The scouting during the week was here to overcome his hip issue, and he is playing like it. Hudson knocks it wide of the pack, but Hayes is onto it. Hurry kick inside the 50. Milne in front. Kosicki wrestles for it. Morris pulls it there. St Kilda free kick. St Kilda free kick to Stephen Milne. I imagine it's for a push in the back. Oh dear, Kosicki pushed Morris.
That is just a shocker. He really wasn't even in his back. That's the umpire guessing. That's a bad one,
Milne with a set shot from 45. He puts it out on the full. He is a sport. He's a sport, Stephen Milne. He's no thief.
He knew.
So Lake has the free kick. Over half-back flank he goes. Bit of a push before the ball arrives. The Dogs free kick. And listen to the Doggies fans. They might be outnumbered tonight. They seem to be outnumbered at every game they go to. But a free kick here to Hudson, half-back for the Dogs. 28-18. They led by 8 points at quarter time. It's now 10 points. 23 minutes second quarter. The kick to a pack. Comes to the front to Dawson of St Kilda. Sweeps the hand pass to Jones. Off he goes to Fisher. Inboard to Graham. Graham finds McAvoy in plenty of space. He marks just inside the centre square. He gets to the 50. And McAvoy might kick a goal. He didn't look too certain about it, but he drills it. Ben McAvoy for the Saints. He'll forget the goal he kicked to draw the game against Hawthorn in the last minute, and he's got the Saints to within 4 points here.
Well, he's an unlikely one, isn't it? But he picked the right option. Just one of those days where it's really, really tight. And I just watched Graham. Graham's just sitting off the contest, but sitting in the centre of the ground. So there's a bit of pressure on. He's able to go there. So often he sits off. He's the bloke they give it to. Chipped it up over to McAvoy. McAvoy had about 4 looks to try and kick it to somebody. Realised, no, they're not coming at me. I've got to make a chance and go forward. And unlike probably better players in his team for the goal kicking, such as the skipper and also to Milne, he just drilled a very, very badly needed goal for the Saints.
The Saints have balanced things up in general play. It's the Dogs by 4 points. Montagna gets a kick out of the middle. It's marked though by Williams for the Dogs. Gives it off to Morris. Kicks it up to half forward. Murphy attacks it hard. Couldn't quite gather. Worked out of it by Gilbert. Hand pass though was smothered. Peaks on the clean-up. He's under pressure from Hargrave. Hand pass back to Gwilt. The pressure comes. He's caught. Dragged down by Grant holding the ball. Murphy on the advantage. Took the ball on.
How far? How far?
And kicked one of the behinds of the year. Robert Murphy puts the Dogs up by 5.
He didn't go 35 metres, I'll give it away.
And McAvoy took 15 steps on the previous hour and just decided go as far as you like.
Good forward pressure, Jared Grant, though. Just getting back to that terrific tackle.
Blake kicks in short and Gwilt marks in the back pocket. 29-24. A 5-point lead to the Bulldogs as we get close to half-time. Kicked by Gwilt outside the 50. Big pack gathers. No mark. Spills to Williams, who hugs the boundary line. Ooh, and Grant dives in. And the umpire's given him the mark. Gee, it looked like a half volley. Pass didn't go 15 metres to Murphy. Murphy beats 1 or 2. Hand pass to Picken, who ballet dances through them and goes for goal and misses to the right-hand side. But Picken playing a game. 1 goal, 1 for Liam Picken. Puff and Billy would be proud. The Dogs 30-24. It's 4-6 to 3-6.
Rob Murphy injured, not injured as such, not coming off the ground, but certainly limping with either a knock to the right knee or a bit of a right knee injury.
It's 1-5 to 2-1 for the term. The Dogs have burnt a couple of chances. Montagna on the play on from the kick-in. Goes long to McAvoy. Minson on the spoil. Gilbert on the tidy-up. Hand pass to McAvoy. Knocked off it. Ward gets it for the Dogs. Gives it to Eagleton. Kicks for Hahn. Can't mark against the boundary on the full slide. It's out of play. Adam White.
Chris Grant is right. Robert Murphy's actually coming from the field now and he is hobbling. Still some concerns also for Nick Del Santo. He's either lost his way to the rooms or there's a real problem because he's been down there for 10 minutes.
40 from the Dogs goal. It's going to be further away because Hayes gathered the tap and he kicks out for the wing. Kosicki presents and marks.
Brad Johnson's back, replacing Murphy.
Kaczynski taking his full measure of time and then some, and he hoofs it up to half forward, marking contest. Revolt hands to it. Johnson down there to make the spoil and the paddle on. Ray gets caught with it by Griffin. They tumble to ground together, and the umpire circles to toss it up inside the final minute of the term. It's the Dogs by one straight kick.
I know it's slippery conditions, but gee, Tom Williams is doing some sort of job on Revolt at the moment.
Hand pass comes to Johnson, and it came from the pack from Cross up to Hahn, who's been a revelation, but his kick isn't fantastic on this occasion. Too wide for Barry Hall, and it's out of bounds just outside the 50. But the Bulldogs have confounded the critics here tonight. They lead 4-6 to 3-6. We thought it'd be low scoring, but we thought Saints might be in front. Minson wins the hit out. Johnson works hard at ground level. Oh, Blake, a hand pass, missed the target. Tidied up by McAvoy, of all people. Hand pass to Ray. Around his body he goes. But Cross takes the mark for the Dogs in between wing and half forward. Running out of time, less than 30 seconds in the quarter to go. He kicks back to Williams. 1 goal lead. Williams goes short, back out wide to the wing to Hargrave. Now he advances the ball to Cross. And maybe they're happy with their 1 goal lead because they're using up time.
Oh, look at Gilby was down the line. Oh.
Kick by Cross. They need a mark from this. It's inside the 50, but the siren sounds. And the Bulldogs, who led by 8 at quarter time, lead by 6 at half time. 4-6-30 to 3 goals 6-24. For the Bulldogs, 4 goals. Grant, Hahn, Addison and Picken. And for St Kilda, 3 goals. McAvoy, Schneider and Milne. We've had 7 goals in the first half, but it has been gripping, thrilling finals football at the MCG.
That's all unfolding on Grandstand AFL. Stan, Mark and Chris.
Well, it's sensational. He came here today with expectations that St Kilda might run away with this, but the start was strong from both sides. They both came out and they were both hard at it. The 8-minute mark was the first point went to the Saints, and that was the ferocity of the contest by both sides. Hahn was the first goal of the game. He got a nice kick back into the middle of the ground, 30 metres out dead in front. As you would like the ball kicked into the forward, you know where you're going to run to. It was on the boundary and it came back into the centre ground. Hahn took that and put it right through. Milne got the next. He went straight up the other end and Milne pulled in the next one. And then there's young Grant, who pulled in a fantastic goal. He ran from the halfback from the wing, kicked it to a spot in the middle of the ground, followed up and picked it up and then kicked another goal through there. And then Liam Picken from the boundary. It was a really good stuff. Great work from the Dogs. Dale Morris, Harbrow Lake and Tommy Williams in defence were just terrific in what they did. Solid. The Saints was solid. Fisher, Hayes and Del Santo, but they just could not score. The Dogs kicked 3-1, 19 for the first quarter to 1-5. They had plenty of chances, the Saints, but they just could not score the goals at that stage. Second quarter started. Schneider goals after 5 minutes from a mistake from Boyd. And when you actually make a mistake against the Saints, don't make it inboard because they just kill you every time. And Schneider did that. Great reply by Addison. Straight away out of the centre bounce up to Addison up forward. Not known for his goal kicking, but solid, straight citizen who just whacked it straight through the middle. And what you want, Dogs are playing with some confidence. We haven't seen it for some time. And, you know, we're all delighted to see them to actually put up a real contest. Lots of mistakes from both sides. But there's a contest from everyone. I can't pick anyone on the ground who was not just giving his all. Hayes, Montagna, Graham and Goddard were just terrific. And on the other side, Ward, outstanding. Boyd, Harbrow and Lake in defence, just magnificent in what they did. Good work by Fisher and Jones on the centre of the ground here, and then a kick into McAvoy, the ruckman, 25 metres out, 55 metres out, ran him out on 15 in, steadied himself and then banged it through. It's a 6-point game, and this has been a terrific game the whole way. Dogs in front only just by 6 points.
Well, gee, I'm impressed because of the attitude of both teams. They're just not willing to give anyone an inch. Really impressed with Callum Ward's game for the Western Bulldogs. It's just been an outstanding game. He's a 20-year-old playing a game like Lenny Hayes can play in a finals. What a great game from him. It is an arm wrestle though. There's if the mistakes are made, and you called it, that mistake that Boyd made, that's almost the only one that's been because of a mistake. All the rest of them have just been hard work. You know, Snyder ran in for that open goal, but the rest of them have just been, it's just back and forth. The goal that Addison kicked was important, because when Snyder ran in for that open goal, you could feel the Saints players lift, you could feel the Saints crowd lift, but it was important the Dogs responded early. They got it through Addison. It was Gilbert. Gilbert didn't pay him any respect. Gilbert plays as a tag-in half forward. He went out near 50. Gilbert drifted back towards the full forward line, and they kicked it to him. It's important to do that, very important to do that. We've got a great contest in our hand, and we really do look forward to the second half.
It is half-time in the second preliminary final. The winner goes on to face Collingwood next weekend. It's the Bulldogs by 6 points over St Kilda. Stan Elves and his thoughts after the latest from the ABC Newsroom with Alison Savage.
Thanks, Jared. The federal opposition leader Tony Abbott has told a Liberal Party conference in Sydney Labor has no mandate to govern. He's attacked Labor's plan to expand immigration centres in several states to deal with increased numbers of asylum seekers, as well as the national broadband network, which he says will never happen. He says Julia Gillard's admission that several election promises will be broken because of the hung parliament is an example of why she can't be trusted.
The more we see of Julia Gillard, I've got to say, the better Kevin Rudd looks. I never thought I would say that. But Kevin Rudd looks strong and principled by comparison to the current incumbent.
Meanwhile, the federal government says it will examine a proposal for a fast rail link between Melbourne and Sydney. A study by Infrastructure Partnerships Australia has found a fast train could travel between the two cities in under 3 hours. It's also found a bullet train could operate between Melbourne Airport and the CBD and would take about 5 minutes. The Infrastructure Minister, Anthony Albanese, says the government will look closely at the proposal.
I think high-speed rail is an important part of our future. We need to make sure that we get the economics of it right, because it has significant benefits for our economy, for our environment, and I think will make a big difference in terms of overcoming the tyranny of distance.
The governor of Afghanistan's southern province of Kandahar has survived a bomb blast as insurgents disrupt voting in the country's parliamentary elections. 2 people were also killed in a rocket attack in the eastern district of Nazia, and an attack in the north killed 1 Afghan soldier and 6 pro-government militiamen. South Asia correspondent Sally Sara reports from the capital, Kabul.
A roadside bomb struck a convoy carrying Kandahar Governor Torilai Wessa. Dr. Wessa was unhurt, but the blast shattered the windows of his vehicle. Insurgents also carried out rocket attacks in Kabul and in several provincial areas, including Badakhshan and Kunduz in the north. Security forces are on alert as millions of voters go to the polls for Afghanistan's parliamentary election. The Taliban have threatened to disrupt the poll, but President Hamid Karzai is urging people to turn out in large numbers. Thousands of electoral observers and officials are overseeing the poll. Sally Sara, ABC News, Kabul.
A man has died in a house fire at Ararat in Western Victoria. The body of the man, believed to be aged in his 70s, was found by firefighters around 1 o'clock this afternoon. An investigation will determine the cause of the blaze, but it isn't thought to be suspicious. On the third day of his state visit to Britain, Pope Benedict is having meetings with the British Prime Minister and other political leaders. He'll then celebrate Mass at Westminster Cathedral. The BBC's James Robbins reports.
The Pope begins his day in short meetings with the Prime Minister David Cameron, followed by the Liberal Democrat leader and Deputy Prime Minister in the coalition government Nick Clegg. Finally, the Pope will see the acting leader of Britain's opposition, Harriet Harman. Last night, the Pope seemed to repeat his attack on her equalities legislation when he talked of a failure to appreciate the rights of believers to freedom of conscience and freedom of religion. But the main focus of the day will be on large services. The first, a Mass in Westminster Cathedral. The second, an evening vigil in London's Hyde Park, which is expected to draw one of the largest crowds of the entire visit.
A convoy of vehicles carrying anti-government red shirts has left Bangkok as part of a series of events to mark the anniversary of Thailand's last coup. Southeast Asia correspondent Zoe Daniel reports.
About 80 cars have left Bangkok for the red shirts' northern heartland of Chiang Mai, where the largest gathering of protesters since May will be held tomorrow. September the 19th marks 4 years since the coup that ousted red shirt icon and former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. It's It's also 4 months exactly since the military dispersed anti-government protests in Bangkok. Tomorrow there'll also be a gathering at the CBD intersection where protesters conducted their 2-month sit-in. The government has issued a series of security warnings to city residents and has banned street closures and the use of loudspeakers at the rallies. Zoe Daniel, ABC News, Bangkok.
And a Cambodian Buddhist monk has been jailed after secretly videotaping hundreds of women as they bathed naked with holy water at a temple. The monk was sentenced to 1 year in prison for distributing pornography after it emerged he taped more than 600 women pouring sacred water over themselves in a pagoda bathroom. This is ABC News.
Change your life. Change the planet. Grow organic. Organicgardener.com.au. The team at ABC's Organic Gardener are thrilled to announce the launch of the magazine's new website. In addition to the print magazine, the website will keep you up to date with organic gardening, lifestyle and living. On the new website, you'll find blogs, selected articles from previous issues and practical gardening tips from the Gardening Australia TV show. Visit organicgardener.com.au.
Grandstand AFL.
Skilled by Hudson, he knocked it forward. The Dogs win possession. Ward to Boyd, shocking, absolutely terrible. And Schneider will run 70 metres into the opening goal on the turnover. That's ghastly by the Dogs.
He penetrates the 50 and overhead. The mark has been taken here at Addison. He missed 11 weeks, but he's back at the right time of the year in the finals, and Addison steers the goal. A beautiful kick from pretty wide out, that's 45 metres. And the Bulldogs charge further ahead, inboard to Graham. Graham finds McAvoy in plenty of space. He marks him inside the centre square. He gets to the 50, and McAvoy might kick a goal. He didn't look too certain about it, but he drills it. Ben McAvoy for the Saints.
Grandstand AFL on ABC Local Radio.
A low-scoring affair at the MCG for the second preliminary final between the Western Bulldogs and St Kilda, and it's the Bulldogs that lead by 6 points, 4-6-30 to the Saints 3-6-24. Welcome back to Grandstand AFL on ABC Local Radio. Matt Clinch updating you with the latest sporting news. In tennis, Australia has a 2-1 lead in the Davis Cup World Cup playoff against Belgium in Cairns. Leighton Hewitt and Paul Hanley won the doubles today, 6-1, 6-2, 6-4. The reverse singles tomorrow will decide the winner of the tie. France is on the verge of its first Davis Cup appearance since 2002 after taking a 2-love lead in its semi-final against Argentina in Lyon. Michael Lodra defeated Juan Monaco in 4 sets in the opening rubber before Game On Freeze also recorded a 4-set victory over David Nalbandian in the day's second singles match. In the other semi-final, the Czech Republic and Serbia are locked at 1 rubber apiece after Radrik Stepanek beat Viktor Troicki before Jano Tipsarevic upset Thomas Burdage in 4 sets. In the NRL, West Tigers last night upset Canberra 26-24. The Tigers will now play St George Illawarra in a preliminary final next weekend. Tonight it's the second semi-final between the Sydney Roosters and Penrith, and it's currently the Roosters 12 leading the Panthers 0. That's 36 minutes into the opening half. South Africa is the first team through to the semi-finals of the 2020 Cricket Champions League after 8-wicket victory over the Royal Challengers Bangalore in Durban this morning. Batting first, Bangalore was all out for a total of 154 in the 20th over, with Dan Christian taking 4 wickets for South Australia. Redbacks captain Michael Klinger was unbeaten on 69 as South Australia passed the victory target with 9 balls to spare. Dan Harris also posted a half century for the Redbacks in his second straight century opening stand with Klinger. Tonight Victoria will play the Super Kings in Port Elizabeth. The Bushrangers must win the match to stay alive in the tournament but come up against the favourites Chennai, including Australians Mike Hussey and Matthew Hayden. While a back injury has ruled New South Wales fast bowler Josh Hazlewood out of the Australian Test squad of India. In the A-League this afternoon, North Queensland Fury hosted the Melbourne Victory in a 0-0 draw in Townsville, while Brisbane are currently playing Adelaide, and at half-time it's locked at 1-1. Tomorrow, full coverage of the Melbourne Heart and Wellington Phoenix from 3 o'clock if you're in Victoria, and around the nation on Grandstand Digital. The Australian women's basketball team has warmed up for its World Championship defence with an 83-77 win over the United States in Spain. Penny Taylor top scored with 18 points for the Opals. The World Championships gets underway next week in the Czech Republic, with the Opals looking to defend their title they won in Brazil in 2006. In horse racing, the Bart Cummings train So You Think is firmed as favourite for next month's Cox Plate after winning today's Underwood Stakes at Caulfield in Melbourne. In today's other Group 1 event, Craig Williams rode Response to victory in the Sir Rupert Clarke Stakes. And finally, the International Cricket Council has launched an investigation into Friday's third one-day international between England and Pakistan. The decision was taken after the ICC received information from a British newspaper on the scoring patterns of the match. Pakistan won the game at the Oval in London by 23 runs. But let's take you back now to the MCG for second half action of the Western Bulldogs and St Kilda. It's the Bulldogs leading by 6 points, 4-6-30 to the Saints 3-6-24. Back to Jared Waitley, Drew Morford, Stan Elves, Mark McClure and Chris Grant.
Thanks, Matt. Just ahead of Stan Elves' analysis to half-time, Jared Cameron has all the numbers.
At half-time, the Western Bulldogs 189 disposals to St Kilda 172. The Bulldogs 116 kicks have been a percentage efficiency of 62, whereas St Kilda's 102 kicks have been a percentage efficiency of just 52. So a difference of 10% there. St Kilda lead the inside 50s 25-23, contested possessions 75-69, tackle count 39-26, and clearances 24-14, but they also lead the turnovers 41-36. Individually, Callan Ward is the leading ball winner for the Western Bulldogs. He's had 7 kicks, 10 hand passes in his 17 possessions, 10 of them contested. Hargrave 14, Brian Lake 14 disposals also. He's taken 7 marks, 5 of them from opposition kicks. Boyd 13, Griffin and Hahn both 12. And for St Kilda, Lenny Hayes leads all comers. He's had 10 kicks and 8 hand passes in his 18 possessions. Montagna 15, Fisher 14, Graham 13, Brendan Goddard 10. 9 of those have been contested, and he's had 6 clearances, which is leading the clearances on the ground.
Stan Elves.
Well, just to add to what the boys said before we went for the little break there, this has just been one heck of a contest. It has been absolutely magnificent to watch. Certainly the conditions are a little bit slippery, but the way they're just putting their bodies in and some of the clashes that have been fantastic. And the thing that I've liked in most instances, players may be hurt, but they've got to their feet. They've just got their feet to do the right thing. It's been tough. It's been basic football. It's just get it, no frill stuff. Now, again, that may not look pretty at different times, but by gee, I think it's played the right way in these things. To me, it's also about taking your chances. When a game is as tight as this, you don't have many goals, it's about taking a chance. I thought in the first quarter, St Kilda squandered shots on goals. A period of time, they looked to control the game, they didn't nail them. The interesting thing is, in the second term, I thought it was the Bulldogs who controlled most of the footy, but they couldn't nail them, their opportunities, and in that turn they kicked 1 goal 5. So it's going to be interesting for all of those reasons. To me, the big question now comes, it's really line ball. It is a line ball, there's a kick in it in a game which is nothing. It's more about who can maintain the pressure. It's more about weight of numbers. This is a time where the reality is it's how many people are going to contribute, how people are going to give you something and give you something of value. Will some side break down? Who is going to be able to break it up? I think that's terribly important. The amazing thing to me is that so much of the pressure will come on St Kilda here, and they're a good side, I know that, but the pressure goes when you're favourites and you're going in and all of a sudden it's not happening for you, there's a tendency to start worry about we may lose this game. So I think that's a pivotal thing. The other thing that stands out to me is that who can lift for us in that situation. Rewald, they've got to look at Rewald in terms of lift. Williams has done a great job on him. Morris has got back at him at different times. They'll be looking for the skipper to lift. On the same hand, I would suggest they're looking for more from Hall. Certainly both those players have given contest, but they haven't hurt sides on the scoreboard. And Dawson's done a pretty good job on him, and at different times Fisher's gone back. So they've got to be able to get a lift out of them. At ground level, not too sure about Del Santo, whether he is hurt or anything like that, but only 8 possessions from a premium on ball at that point of time. They'll be looking for more from him. And on the other hand, I think the Western Bulldogs will be saying to Gian Syracuse, you're going to give us more. 3 possessions to half a game is just absolute rubbish, and you have just got to lift. So I think the game's up for grabs. And I would say this, there'd be very few people would have thought before the game, and I was one of them, that the game would be in this situation, that the game would be up for grabs, and it's been the Bulldogs who are making the running with the Saints trying to get them down. This has been a cracker.
We're getting some pictures from the rooms, and Dale's having a bit of a fitness test in the rooms as we speak.
He looks okay. Look like he's stretching up. Okay. Yeah, moving all right.
If you think we've been here before, half-time of last year's preliminary final, St Kilda same score, 3-6-24, the Bulldogs 4-7 as against 4-6. So it was the Dogs by 7 points, having kicked 1 more behind than they had to this point. The Saints kicked 4 goals to 2 in the third term to set up a break of 5 points and ended up winning by 7.
And, of course, they started with the controversial free kick to Revolt before the umpire bounced the ball to start the half.
Saints the first to emerge, and just peering down to see if Del Santo is with them.
Yeah, he's running out down the back there, yep.
What do you reckon?
Well, I don't know. You know, we're at this stage again, aren't we? I just seriously, you want an opinion? I really don't know, and I'm just waiting for the contest to start again because I've enjoyed it. It's been enjoyable to watch. I mean, they're both really red hot, and the doggies have surprised the hell out of us. They haven't played like this for 6 weeks, and this is the best they've put in. Their tackle counts up, their contested balls up, their body in line. I haven't seen anyone move off the line, and that's a really good sign. But they've got to maintain it. It's okay to do it for a half, but you've got to do it for 100 minutes, and that's the key. And we know the Saints can, and we know the Saints will.
Well, Jared mentioned the similarity to last year's preliminary final, but when they met in round 6 earlier this year, similarities there as well, because the Bulldogs led for most of the night. They still led by 15 points with 6 minutes to play and got run over right at the end. So this could go right to the wire, and we might be biting our nails down to our elbows.
Well, I think there's a lot of people in the crowd here. There's almost a nervous energy around the place, and I would suggest that the nervous energy from a Bulldogs perspective is, can we do it? Can we hang on? And of course, from the St Kilda's perspective, is, boy, we hope we don't lose one that we should win. So it is just, I think it's an enthralling contest, and it's got everybody on the edge of their seat.
Well, we saw last night with Collingwood's youngsters standing up in the finals, many of them thrown an opportunity for the first time, and you've got to be really pleased with Callan Ward, the way he stood up in that first half. His season average is 16, and he's passed it in half a game.
Del Santo's coming to the bench, boys.
Yeah, but he's moving okay. Looks like he's moving okay.
We said before the game, didn't we, Drew? Well, I think all to a man, we all said that the Bulldogs need to find someone who can lead the way in either contested possessions or tackles, or the way they go about the game this evening. And geez, isn't it fantastic to see a 20-year-old showing his teammates the way to do it? Well,
he's 10 contested possessions, and the next best Bulldog is 6. Lake and Cross, so he's leading the way.
It's actually interesting because Ward's been in the system now nearly 3 years, and that's how long it takes to become a player in this arena. And Rocket just does not play enough of them and give them enough game time.
Whitey, what about Nick Del Santo?
Yeah, I've just trying to work out exactly what the situation is with Del Santo. It's hard to tell. He did a fitness test in the rooms at half-time with the medical staff watching very closely. A lot of stretching being done, then did a series of run-throughs. He's actually going to start on the ground in the third term. He's just running on now. But it was a number of sort of sprints inside the rooms to try and test out this. It's a leg injury of some sort. I'm not prepared to guess exactly what it is because he was doing all sorts of different stretching in the rooms. But he is going to start. But 10 minutes he spent on the bench in the rooms just before half-time.
Interesting thing to me is that both sides have got rid of the loose man behind a fence and they're playing one-on-one. It'll be interesting to see how long it stays like this.
So at half-time, the Dogs lead by 6 points. It's 4-6 to 3-6, and we start the second half. Down goes the bounce. Camped underneath it is Gardner. He wins the hit out, but it comes to Picken of the Bulldogs. Gets the hand pass away to that man, Ward again. Off the left boot, a kick out wide. Nobody there at half-forward flank. Leading the race is Schneider for the Saints. He gathers below the commentary box. Turns inboard, has a bounce. So the turf has dried up. The kick towards half-forward, late from an opposing kick. Drops this mark, but regathers, and now he's holding the ball. He takes them on and is thrown to the deck. Del Santo, the tackler. He passes to full forward or in the pocket, and Milne takes the mark. He's actually about 47 metres from goal.
I tell you, it's the little things, isn't it? It's the little things. What leg firstly before we go all the way back to Brian Lake? Schneider kicks with his left leg. Everyone went to his right side. That's why he was able to bring the ball back inside.
Milne looking for his second goal. He gets to the paint at 50. Oh, he's kicked it gloriously. What a goal that is. And what a big start to the second half for the Saints. They've levelled the scores at 4-6 apiece.
Well, you're right. Brian Lake should have punched. But Rob Murphy, he should have gone to the left side of Schneider. He was always going to have to come back inside. He's got no right foot, Schneider. And Murphy ran past the contest. I don't know whether the impact that he had just before half-time has meant that he's not able to twist and turn, but he was just able to get onto that left side far too easily and put into a dangerous position. But Brian Lake's confidence in the air can sometimes be his undoing, because Kazitsky came back and he tried to outmark him. And then Schneider leads up, and actually a very good goal. Very good goal from that position. It's a fair kick for Schneider, for Milne. He's not a great lengthening kick, but drilled it beautifully.
Chris Grant on Grandstand AFL scores a level. Ward turns it over with a hand pass in the middle, and Eddie is onto it, and the Saints go forward again. Revolt flies, can't mark, he can crumb, and snap on the left. It rolls at the goal front and dives away. It's a behind, but it's enough to give the Saints the lead. Adam White.
We know what leg it is with Nick Del Santo. He kicked that ball to Milne before on his right foot under no pressure, so it's his left side. We just need to know what exactly it is, because he does look fairly cautious.
Ominous signs, the Saints.
Yes, Rewalt's such a key, but he's goalless tonight. He's kicked 3 behinds. Montagna drops a mark, but the ball luckily comes back to him. He snaps from outside the 50. High ball. Del Santo held by one hand. Off hands it comes to Revolt. Goes away from goal with a hand pass to Gardner, who goes for goal. Has he made the distance? Yes! The Saints are in front. They lead by 7. Michael Gardner with a goal from 50. St Kilda 5-7 to 4-6.
A renewed vigour, because the Saints have come out here and they've just another goal.
There's a conference going on between field and goal umpire. Lake got a hand to the... Oh, no, it's been touched.
Oh!
It's been overruled.
By who?
I reckon the boundary umpires overruled it.
Gee, well, surely the goal umpire's in the best position. That's amazing.
It did look as though it cleared him, but anyway... It is a behind, so the Saints lead by just 2
Channel
points.
10 runs goalpost cam. Here it is, and it's out of frame. Wouldn't you know? Long kick in. The Saints have it back again, though. Hayes to Eddie. Back to Hayes. Breaks a tackle. Kick smothered. Up in the air it goes. Jan Syracuse is onto it. He lost it. Jones out to Hayes again from the pocket. Dragged off his kick. The ball is out of play.
They've certainly ramped it up, the Saints, so you can tell that they can pick up another gear. But can the Doggies? Can they respond? Can they hold them out?
Scoreboard at the ground shows the lunge of Lake, and technology fails, and anybody who says technology can solve the game just doesn't watch. Boyd kicks it out defence. It's into the middle of the ground, but the Saints have it camped. Taken by Gilbert. Off to Blake. Hand pass to Fisher. Awful kick to half forward, but it falls into the lap of Goddard. It's all been played in one half. Goddard right over the chest of Revolts.
What a kick.
Searing ball.
He's had a hand in three things that have gone through the goal so far, Nick.
It's a 45-degree angle to the right.
Saints have been inside 55 times to 0 at the start of this quarter.
2 behinds and a couple that haven't made the distance for Revolts. He'll make it this time from 48. It is a goal. St Kilda dominating the opening 5 minutes of the third term and looking ominous. They run to an 8-point lead, 5-8 to 4-6.
Just a little observation there is that I think that one of the reasons they're in trouble in the Bulldogs is that they lose their structure. Now, the ball's down the forward line, but I just watched the players there, and more importantly, Jan Syracuse and Hahn, they just ran down there to put pressure on, but the reality is St Kilda just sat back. It was 4-1. Robert Murphy. Now, to me, that's just dumb football. You've got to have some sort of structure, because if you win the footy under pressure and just belt it out, you're just setting yourself up to be creamed. But Rewald, let me tell you, he's been stung. He's had a chance to think about where he's at in his game, and let me tell you, he's on fire.
Bounce back in the middle. Hudson wins it for the Dogs. Comes underfoot. He's not coming clear. And we'll get another bounce. 38 to 30. 2-2 to nothing at the start of this third quarter in the opening 6 minutes. Thrown up by the umpire. Rode by Ward again. Is he playing a game? His kick inside the 50. Johnson can't mark it. Comes to Blake of the Saints. Hand pass to Gwilt. Hand pass to Gilbert. Still at half back. Gilbert in trouble. He tries to centre the ball. I don't know what he was doing there. Grant works it out for the Dogs. Ward hand pass back. Boyd pops it up in the air, straight to the opposition. Schneider takes a mark inside defensive 50 for the Saints.
Schneider kicks it out to the wing. Didn't initially find a target. Revolt out to meet it though. He traps the footy and distributes it. Off to Dempster. Now to Schneider. Hospital ball in the middle of the ground. Hargrave slits on Montagna. Gilbert into assist. Hand passed up in the air though. He knocks over Hargrave. Last man standing is Hahn. He dribbles the kick about 4 metres away. It didn't clear the area. Del Santo's onto it. Off to Graham. Into the 50. Gardner's loose. So too Milne for a moment. Gardner's going to set it up to the teeth of goal. Kosicki, unimpeded run. Leaps in to take the mark. They're a different side after half-time, the Saints. And Kosicki from close in can build the lead still. He is on an angle out to the left. But the mark is barely 20 from goal. Kosicki, who was hit down the middle fairly in the opening term, had to leave the field. Hasn't had a great influence. He can post a major here. Kosicki goes. Saints by 14, biggest lead of the night. 6-8-44. The Dogs are stuck at 4-6-30. We've played 8 minutes in one half of the ground.
Well, Gardner chanced his arm on that occasion. Hudson was actually caught, not necessarily ball watching, but the ball was in dispute. And Hudson was actually watching the play. Well, Gardner, he took his chance. He got forward of the play. And when the ball was turned over and went into St Kilda's hands, it was Del Santo's hands that came into. And you're right, he kicked with that left foot again. And he doesn't want to kick with that with the right foot. Sorry, he doesn't want to kick with that left foot. And Gardner was all alone. And from then on, it was all open for St Kilda. And Gardner waited for the position of Kosicki and kicked it truly.
Great burst by the Saints, but Hudson wins in the middle. They've turned it over though, and a little hand pass, Eddie to Jones, off to Montagna, and he finds Goddard out the open, and he beats a man at the front edge of the square and goes long for goal, and he got the distance, Brendan Goddard, and just missed to the left-hand side. It's an onslaught at the moment, and they're not actually getting full value for their dominance. They lead 6-9 to 4-6.
Harbrow got the kick in, delivered it to Wood. At the defensive 50, he guides his kick up the line. Minson lets it bounce. Montagna tackles Minson out of play. Waddy?
I think what's happening now with Del Santo, that Daniel Cross has gone to him, but Del Santo's starting at a half forward, so they're losing one of their best clearance players in Daniel Cross because he's not where the action is.
Saints by 15 at the throw-in a low-scoring affair. Minson down to the front. Needs Griffin, who's onto it. Feeds it with the hand pass to Hahn. He'll kick long to half forward. Hall against Dawson. They collapse to ground. Jan Syracuse knocks it out toward the boundary. The Saints have numbers. Wilkes to Blake. To Dempster it comes. He kicks out to Peake. Peake's 40 away from defensive goal. He dabs the pass to Milne. Working up the field. McAvoy runs a couple of leads. Milne is going to kick it for Revolt, who doubles back. Kosicki closes at him, and the two St Kilda forwards collide. And Kosicki has hurt Revolt.
Kosicki's got no awareness. Fancy cleaning up your captain like that.
That was ridiculous.
Well, he should have called him back.
He's in trouble, Revolt.
He should have called him back, held his man out and called back, Nick, but no, he didn't see him.
He's in trouble. He's seeing stars, Revolt.
Throw in near centre wing. Work to the front by Kosicki, who came up all right after the collision. Saints have it. McAvoy hand pass to Graham to Montagna. Standing start kick towards the 50. Lake drops a mark he should have taken. Eddie in front. Swamped. The umpire will bounce. Kosicki, hands on hips, walking away.
Does Brian Lake actually know how to punch the ball? Or does he just mark everything that comes his way? It doesn't matter who's there or what. He just does not do the team thing sometimes.
comes to Ray of the Saints, and he's swamped, and the umpire will have to throw it up once more.
Just a little observation. At every ball up now, a St Kilda player is dropping out the back. He's just saying, hey, it's no good being in there. I'm going to drop out. And they're just setting themselves up to be where they want. They'll either now outnumber down the back or they'll run away from the contest. Bulldogs all getting sucked in.
Griffin, third man up, but the hit out comes St Kilda's way, then they've turned it over.
That's weak.
It's bobbling about all over the place.
Yep.
Gilbert gets
playing for a kick.
Oh, picked up by Peake of the Saints, and he barrels for goal and kicks it from 47 metres. He burst through and made a goal out of nothing. Brett Peake. And the Saints have run to a 21-point lead.
Well, they're just dominating all the contests. They're actually harder at it. They're keeping their feet. And what Stan just said about June Syracuse was absolutely right. Don't dog it. Don't lay on the ground and don't try and play for free kicks. Just go for the ball and try and win it for your mates. All of a sudden, they've just dominated that area. And when you get into space and you see Peake there who's got some toe and some finish, they are killing them. That is, I think, their fourth goal for the quarter so far to the Dogs, 0. They are flogging them and they're on their way.
Yep, 4-3 to nothing.
5 in a row in the game. Saints by 21. Minson wins the tap. They're going to get some footy though in the middle. Oh, heavy hit from Del Santo on Ward. Advantage is called. I'm not sure it was really there, and it'll have to come back to Ward. He'll give the hand pass to Griffin. He flares it out to the southern wing. Minson just took a couple of goes to take the mark. Looks up to half forward. He's going to unload it in that direction. Hall's going to have 3 to beat. Goddard across the front. Doesn't mark. Picking for a moment. Had it. He was tied up by Fisher. And will need a bounce. 40 out from the Dogs goal.
Yeah, it's a poor effort by Minson. He calls for the footy, then he kicks it to about a 3-on-1. I mean,
thrown up and landed unimpeded on the turf because no one was paying any attention. Goddard to Jones. Mown down in the tackle. That's holding the ball. It's Picken who sticks the tackle and earns himself a free kick too far out to score. He's going to land at 20 out. Kick for Barry Hall. Can't get to the pack. Goddard the spoil. Straight to Gilby. Runs a loop. Gets it to the right boot. Lobs it a goal. I think it made it. It's beat the lunging defence. And the Dogs stem the bleeding. Gilby with a long-range pot shot, 5-6-36 the Dogs, 7-9-51 the Saints.
Well, great play by Gilby, but let me tell you what happened. The rundown,
Pickens tackle.
The Pickens tackle, the forward pressure, just be able to do that. And that's what's been missing in this situation, because they've been able to outnumber so often. They've played with cooler heads, St Kilda, in this term. They've had an attack on the footy, but it's a smart setting themselves up. But that was Picken, just absolutely superb, that's caused that. Boy, was that a badly needed one against the flow.
First goal for the Dogs since the 6-minute mark of the second quarter. Went out the 14-minute mark of the third. Bounce in the middle, hit out one by McAvoy. But taken by Boyd of the Dogs. He gets his hand pass away. Picken gets a tough ball out of there, and the Dogs still have it. Griffin's kick over centre wing. Montagna getting back there first. Gathers, hand pass to Gwilt. Good backing up by the Saints. Back to Montagna, who kicks towards half forward. Kazitsky charges the pack. Front and square Milne. A high ball, not enough distance. To full forward, Goddard is there. Oh, he uses a backhander and absolutely cleans up his opponent. And he's given away the free kick.
Be handy if he actually went for the ball, wouldn't it?
He just flung his arm back and has poleaxed his man.
Oh, yeah.
It was taking a long time to get up.
A couple of cracks, I think. Yeah.
Picken. So
he's unsure where he is too, the kid.
Was he reported?
Well, these days you don't necessarily have to be reported.
I think Picken's going to come off the ground.
The match review panel might have a look at it, and if the Saints get through to the grand final, will Brenton Goddard, an All-Australian, be missing?
Shrug the trainers off.
Well, if he stayed on, he should be taking the free kick. Gilby out of full-back.
Correct.
Look at the kick.
That's a terrible kick. And sat there for Goddard to jump up over the top of Jones Siracusa. And the Saints will go back forward. Gardner into the pocket. Goddard can't mark against Lake. Revolts on the crumb. Hand pass to Kaczynski. Got it to his boot and ran it past the face of goal. It's a behind 16 points. Adam White.
Jared, Nick Del Santo has come off the ground again with the physio. A little bit of a chat, then on the phone. He's just walking the bench. I reckon it's left hamstring. That's my guess. And it's still a big concern for the Saints.
In the third quarter, the Saints have outpossessed the Dogs 52-28. Kick in, marked by Lake, and his kick is wide. Too wide for Eagleton, and it beats him over the boundary line. The Bulldogs have just dried up in this quarter.
Brian Lake's very good at undoing his good work.
Goddard coming to the bench, and Pickens giving him a mouthful the whole way to the bench. He tagged him all the way to the pine. And there's a sharp edge to that little contest. Saints win the ball near centre wing. Jones to Hayes, to Montagna, back to Hayes. Losing ground in possession. But now Lenny kicks towards the 50. Rewald in the middle of the pack, no mark. Milne first to recover. Might have been interfered with by Morris, no whistle. Gouged out as the hand pass, it comes to Hudson. Off to Wood. And they work through the middle. The kick towards half forward, all St Kilda. It's a stray. And the mark for the Saints taken by Fisher.
Fisher goes to Revolt, who got loose 60 away from goal. He looks to full forward, swings the kick there now. Schneider going back to the flight. Can't mark, can trump, burns them off, has a bounce. Schneider opens up the goal front, dances around them and drives it into the third deck. That is evasive skills at their best. Schneider left them lamenting, clasping at fresh air. 8-10-58 the Saints, the Bulldogs 5-6-36.
Well, again, they just powered forward. And guess who's had his hand in it? Is the captain, of course, in Nick Rewalt. Fisher just came off half-back. There was so much space there. And then over to Schneider. Guess who lost his footing? Lindsay Gilby. The easy way out is to fall over, Lindsay, and you had your hands on him and you just didn't power into him and push him over the line where you should have done so. You pay the price. Schneider held his feet, just jammed it through.
I was disappointed the other end of the ground. Bulldogs coming forward. Brad Johnson running back to the goal instead of coming up. It just got to go to the ball. Don't worry about the one over the back.
Bounce in the middle. Cross gets a tough hand pass out. Got a free kick for a high tackle advantage to Griffin to Eagleton. His kick inside the 50. Johnson can't mark. Hasn't been really a factor tonight, Brad Johnson. Gathered by Clint Jones. Chain of hand passes. Finishes up with Gwilt. Across the ground goes Gwilt. And the mark taken by Dawson. The Saints have kicked just 3 goals to half-time, but they've kicked 5 more in 18 minutes at the start of the third quarter. Dawson's kick up the ground, marked by Blake. Still at half-back. Blake out to centre wing to Ray. And a few gaps starting to open up now. Not the same man-on-man contested possessions that we were getting in the first half.
Now, Drew, they'll start to deny the ball to the Bulldogs. They will not let them touch it.
The next pass is to McWalter, who goes back to Gwilt. And this is the old tempo the Saints can play. When they get up and they lead by 22, very difficult to haul them in.
Having to chip it around. Fisher sideways to Gwilt. Works it forward to Graham. Gilbert is still loose, running across the middle of the ground. Graham sees him, gives it to Gilbert, breaks the lines, kicks to full forward over the top of Revolt. Griffin comes out. Revolt had a look at the crumb. Wasn't able to gather. Peak with a hand pass in close confines. Del Santo flicked it out to Revolt. Gets it to his right boot. It's a goal as well. They've broken the Bulldogs' spirit. A powerful surge by St Kilda, and they can see Collingwood on the horizon. 9-10-64 to the Dogs, 5-6-36. It's 28 points.
Well, we talked at half-time about who needed to step up, and I mentioned Rewald. I mean, he'd been held in that first half, but he's been absolutely magnificent. 7 possessions for the quarter, leading from the front, but more importantly, the tempo footy. It is now totally played on St Kilda's terms. They've got the ball, they go back, and the Bulldogs are rattled. The Bulldogs are unsure whether to go one-on-one to zone. I've got to tell you, you are not going to beat St Kilda playing zone drop-back footy. You've got to play one-on-one. Easy possessions in their hands will slaughter you.
In the centre, the ball doesn't even get out of the bullseye. Well, now it does at ground level, and guess who's after it? Ward, who's played a phenomenal game. Hand pass to Boyd. His hand pass doesn't hit a target. Socket off the ground by Gardner. Doesn't go very far. Eagleton gathers to Williams, to Gilby, and Eagleton kept on running. Receives the hand pass and steers the pass low for Hall, who dives in but can't mark. Trapped in front by Johnson. Hurried kick towards the goal square. Chance for you, Big Will. He throws it out rugby style. Gets away with murder. Addison has a shot from right in front, only about 15 out. It's away to the left-hand side and through for a minor score. Addison has kicked 1 goal, 1 for the night. The Dogs are 5-7, trailing the Saints, 9 goals, 10.
Kick in was a quick one to Montagna, out to Quilton, up to Gilbert, kicks around the southern wing. Kosicki hard up on the lead. He takes the mark and brings it inboard. They're queuing up the Saints. Goddard marks and runs on. He's gone long and strong, and Hudson fumbled the mark, left it there for Revolt. Hand passes to Gardner, and it's the Saints by 33. She's ugly now for Dogs fans after promising so much through the first half. St Kilda 7 goals in 22 minutes of this third term. 10-10-70 to the Western Bulldogs 5-7-37.
Well, the Dogs just haven't been able to win the ball at the coalface. Every contest that there's been in this third quarter, it's been a St Kilda player who's got to the drop of the ball. There's been a St Kilda player who's willing to actually run into space, gut run, bust the lung to try and give a teammate an opportunity down the ground. And the Dogs, what the Dogs are doing, they're not going for that hard ball. The things that they were doing in the first half have just totally fallen away.
Oh, the Saints look headed for the grand final and a chance to make up for last year's disappointment. Out of the centre, the Dogs' kick goes across the ground. It's taken by Montagna. He's monstered down there by Ward, who gets the hand pass away to Picken. Picken's high ball inside the 50. Minson's there, knocked away from him. Comes to the front to Dempster for the Saints. Hand pass to Graham, who wheels around. Kicks towards midfield. Gardner, he's met from behind and in front. Ball at ground level. Gouged out by the Saints, but taken by Harbrow for the Dogs. His hand pass out in front of Murphy, who does a pirouette to break a tackle and left foots the ball to Grant just inside the 50. Brilliant play by Robert Murphy. Jared Grant, who kicked a goal in the first quarter. Boy, do the Dogs need this. They've kicked just 1-1 in this quarter against 7 goals for. Grant from 50 metres at the punt road end. Gets good distance on it, but it's left all the way. And a minor score.
I'll just make a small point. Jared Grant's going for goal. Mitch Hahn gets caught off the ground and runs almost beside him as he's walking in to take the kick. If you don't want distractions, don't run a metre beside your teammate as he's taking a shot at goal.
Kick into Gwilts, outside the 50, not a great kick. Ray had to wait, Morris the spoil. Boyd spins out of trouble, gives it to Morris, kicks in a hurry, Hall out, couldn't mark on the second grab. It falls for McQualter, hand pass to Blake, the Saints out to the wing. Revolt starting to clump the footy. Takes it in front of Williams.
Barry Hall, 79 goals for the season, 1 behind tonight.
Sideways, Revolts. Dempster presented for him. He's got the short option in Gilbert. It's Dawson, in fact, back into the centre square. Dawson's going to cross the face of goal. Finds Goddard. Without any further drama, Wilt presents short. So the Saints work it around at the 25-minute mark of the third term. Back for Dempster, who's got a little bit of room this time. He loads it up for half forward. Del Santo's got no acceleration off the mark. Hargraves slides in, did enough to see it away and out of bounds. It's the Saints by 32 points.
Well, Collingwood might have a little problem with Luke Ball. Just maybe St Kilda might have a little problem with Del Santo, and maybe match review panel for Goddard at the boundary throw-in. The ball comes to Minson, throws the boot onto the ball onto the boot. Eagleton dragged down. Good tackle by Gwilt. Gilby tackled when he hasn't got it by Graham. Graham gathers. Hand pass. Eventually finishes up with Ray. Now Dempster, monstered by Barry Hall. Yeah, poor Night Hall. Gene Syracuse has had a shock of it. He gets a hand pass out here to Grant. His kick astray, turned over to the Saints. Whistle's gone. It was going to be a St Kilda free kick. Open slather now as Goddard goes short and Snyder marks inside the centre square. 70 plays 38, and yet the Dogs led at quarter time by 8 and at half time by 6. They've been blown away in this third quarter.
They can't get their hands on the ball. They cannot get their hands on the ball, the Dogs.
The ability to lift. Some people can, and some clubs can, and some can't.
Schneider up to peak inside the forward line on the long bomb. They flew against each other because it's again Revolt again. It didn't come off. Harbrow delivers out to half back for Grant. Back to Harbrow on to Griffin, who hit it at full speed. He kicks beyond the lot. He needs some sort of bounce and a bit of luck as well. Peak gets back as Addison was coming up. Here's the luck. It falls for hard and he botched it. He kicked it behind from about 13 metres out, didn't steady, and he actually had a step to do so. Instead got it off the wrong part of the boot and dribbled it behind. 31 points, St Kilda's lead.
That's that inferred pressure, isn't it? When you just think there are people around you and you're struggling and you butcher it.
Barry Hall showed some frustration, had a bit of a slap with Dempster. Montagna has it for the Saints in the back pocket. Wilt marks still inside defensive 50. About 3 minutes to go to three-quarter time. And the Saints heading for a grand final. So it looks like it'll be Collingwood and St Kilda. 1966 will be revived again. Montagna from half-back to half-forward. Morris juggles and marks. Marvellous effort to be back in the game after basically breaking his back. To Hargrave. Into Cross. Back to Hargrave. Kicks towards the middle of the ground. Turnover again. And Gilbert gets in there for St Kilda to take the mark.
Gilbert looks to his side, kicks it to Ray. And Ray doesn't turn in any hurry. 2.5 minutes left in this term. The term that has decided the contest. The kick is to Gwilts. Right half back. Now to Montagna.
Marks are 36-6 in this quarter. So many just uncontested little chip around controlling the game.
Oh, up to Revolt. That was contested. Pickett made the spoil. Williams falls out with it. He was legged.
Yes.
And the ball's going to come back.
Is that a trip then?
Well, Pickett.
Is that 50 metres?
No.
Not now.
What about Pickett whacking Revolt across the chops?
Williams to Murphy. Kicks into the pocket. Brad Johnson wrestles. Can't mark. Gwilts at the full. Keeps it away from Grant and out of play. Williams is going to have to leave the field, Whiting.
Yeah, he is. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but he looks very sore. He's coming into this game like last week with some damaged ribs. I'm not sure whether that might be a bit of an issue there again.
And Revolt coming to the bench as well. A marvellous third quarter. Inspirational term of football by the tall blonde skipper. Fantastic. Now we go back to defence with the Saints bringing it out. And straight off the bench, Zach Dawson takes a mark on defensive 50. About a minute and a half to go to three-quarter time. Kick by Dawson, an absolute horror. And lucky it wasn't out of bounds on the full. It bounces out just up near the interchange gate near centre wing, and a throw in below the commentary box. St Kilda 10-10-70 lead the Western Bulldogs 5-9-39. Here's the throw in. The bearded Hudson. McAvoy a hand to it. The ball comes to Boyd. And a mark inside defensive 50 by Blake for the Saints. Well done.
Blake out to Goddard. They just chew the clock here. Goddard backs away against the boundary. Jones runs a lap or two ahead of him. Goddard up the line. Just wrong-footed McAvoy at the wrong moment. Hudson took it unopposed. He kicks for Hahn. Overcommitting was Goddard, but he had coverage at the back end. He knocks it clear up to Milne. Toes it around the line. Oh, Wood ran straight into McAvoy and got down at the tackle stuck. Jones is dispossessed. Ray fumbles. Pulled out by Eddie, who coughed it up. Ward, surely he was taken without it. No free kick. Oh, and then St Kilda get a free kick against Hahn in the back on Dawson, and the Dogs fans howl in the terraces.
He missed the first two and picked the last one.
The kick. I tell you what, so that clash between Easton Wood and Ben McAvoy happened right in front of me, and the noise when the two bodies clashed. Tell you what, I'm lucky I'm here.
Did they pick any teeth off the ground? No, it's just Milne. An underground kick by Milne. Siren, three-quarter time. A game-winning quarter by the Saints. They came from 6 points down to lead by 31 at three-quarter time. St Kilda 10-10-70 to the Western Bulldogs 5 goals 9 39. So in that quarter it was 7 goals 4 to 1 goal 3 to blow the game open. The goal kickers for St Kilda: 2 for Schneider, 2 for Rewalt, 2 for Milne. Singles: McAvoy, Gardner, Kazitsky and Peake. And for the Western Bulldogs, just the 5 goals: Grant, Hahn, Gilby, Addison and Picken. At three-quarter time, they're half an hour away, the Saints, from qualifying for the grand final, which would be their second in a row. The Saints 10-10-70, the Dogs 5-9-39. And in the NRL tonight, it looks like the Roosters have set up an unassailable lead over the Panthers. At the hour mark, it was 18-0 the Roosters' way, so the Panthers are looking at a straight sets exit from the final series. This is Grandstand AFL on ABC Local Radio, Radio Australia, News Radio and Digital Radio.
Great Australian Rabbit Stories from ABC Books is a marvellous collection of true life tales that give a remarkable insight into life on the land, as seen through the eyes of those who've been at the front line of Australia's relentless battle with the rabbit. Full of heart, humour, sadness and adventure, these stories perfectly capture the Aussie spirit. Great Australian Rabbit Stories is available now from ABC shops, centres, good bookshops and online.
Grandstand AFL.
Oh, picked up by Peake of the Saints, and he barrels for goal and kicks it from 47 metres. He burst through and made a goal out of nothing.
Goddard the spoil straight to Gilby, runs to Luke, gets to the right boot, lobs at a goal. I think it made it. It's beat the Lunsing defence. Schneider going back to the flight. Can't mark, hands from, burns them off, has a bounce. Schneider opens up the goal front, dances around them and drives it into the third deck. Close finds Del Santos, looks it out to Revolt, gets it to his right boot. It's a goal as well. They've broken the Bulldogs' spirit, and they can see Collingwood on the horizon. Just fumbled the mark, left it there for Revolt. Hand passes to Gardner, and it's the Saints by
50 on ABC Local Radio.
St Kilda by 31 at the final change. Stan Elves, Mark McClure, Chris Grant.
Well, St Kilda lifted. They lifted to another level. The Dogs couldn't go with them. And whatever Ross Lyon said to his charges at half-time, it certainly played out in front of us. The Dogs just could not get their hands on the ball. Each contest that we saw, there was a marking contest. At the drop of the ball, it was all St Kilda players. And whoosh, off the ball went. Totally dominated, particularly early in the quarter. 7-minute mark of the third quarter, the Dogs hadn't even had it inside 50. It was 6-0 inside 50s, a total domination. 120 possessions they had that quarter, St Kilda, to 76. They won the clearances 12-6. And if there was an area that the Bulldogs are able to beat their opponents in, it's always the clearances. It's one of the things they were doing in the first half. They were tough. They were putting their head over it. Well, St Kilda were the one that did it that quarter. They came from 6 points down and now lead by 31 points. Callum Ward, well, he can hold his head high. He's been one Bulldog right from the start of the first bounce to the end of that third quarter. He continues to show the way for his older players, and it shouldn't be left to a 20-year-old. They say it's a Premiership quarter, the third quarter, and there's no doubt that the St Kilda Saints, they played a Premiership quarter then.
They were superb, weren't they? And led by the skipper. You know, we talked at half-time that there was no real sort of key forward for either side. He'd been down, and Hall at the other end had really been down. Well, Hall just couldn't get into the game at all. Just couldn't get it there. But Rewal was just magnificent, and it's amazing when he lifts and he can go to. You just see the change in the complexion. But you're right, Chris. They started to win the footy around the packs, and from that point of time on, it's a really important thing to me. I just watched the Bulldogs, understanding they were losing that, to me, just lost composure. There were players running up from all over the place to go to the footy. They were like bees around the honey pot. But every time they did it, a St Kilda player would just drop out the back. He would drop out the back saying, no, it's no good having 15 blokes in there. I'm not going to have any impact on it. I'm going to drop out the back. And as a result, the ball invariably would just come out, and there'd be a St Kilda player loose in that situation, be in the forward line, in the back line. And so all of a sudden they've started to get their hands on the ball. And then when they do that and they start to get the footy, it only got to be a little chip round kick. Then they start to rack them up. At the 27-minute mark, 34-6 marks, most of those uncontested. We'll talk about Rewal's big one and stuff like that, but most of them would chip around. And as a result, Bulldog players, you just watch them, they're unsure who to go to. They run to somebody, and whoever they'd leave to, they'd kick to their man. They just got it around. St Kilda, magnificent. Kicked 7 goals in a 21-minute. What do you think they do then? Tempo footy, boys. We're just going to go back, play on our terms. And then all of a sudden, it mightn't look that good, but guess what? All the Bulldogs are doing is just running to guard the mark, running to guard the mark. They're in total control. Any hope for the Bulldogs? I would suggest not. And the reason is because they do not have a really key go-to forward. There's nobody down there at this point of time that they can go into the forward line with authority, because what is happening is the Bulldogs under pressure, playing loose man back. Let me tell you, their side is not good enough to allow St Kilda play a loose man back. It's played now on St Kilda's terms.
Jared, what about him to three-quarter time?
Lee Montagna, 27 disposals, 12 in that quarter. Hayes, 22. For Western Bulldogs, Ward, 24. Boyd, 20. In that quarter, Western Bulldogs had 26 turnovers to 15, and they conceded 6 goals directly from those turnovers, as compared to St Kilda's 1 goal from a turnover.
Before we get underway, Adam White.
Drew, I think one of the big talking points of the week, if St Kilda wins, is going to be Nick Del Santo. He's starting the final quarter on the bench. He has got a left leg injury. It will certainly be monitored throughout the course of grand final week, should the Saints win.
It's the Saints by 31. It's a pretty good bet from here. So the final term underway. It'll be the last term in the career of Brad Johnson. Bounced in the centre of the G. Minson and Gardner. Gardner went early. Minson spikes it forward all the way to centre half forward. Grant lays his shepherd just to try to protect the ball further. Pulled out though by Goddard, and the Saints repel. Out through Gwilt. Bumbles it up past Revolt and through the legs of Kazitsky. And Harbrow gathers at the back of that pack. Kicks across half back. Boyd. Grant presents for him up the wing. Instead the kick goes short into the square for Ward. He'll measure off the pass for Cross. Brings it out members side for Hargrave. Milne comes at him. Hargrave sends it in the Johnson direction. It'll bounce before it reaches him and gets past.
First goal or two, if the Dogs can get it in the last quarter, we'll give them a lift.
It's 50 out from their goal as they try to manufacture it. Minson very much wrestling with Gardner. Knocked to the front. Jones for the Saints. Hand pass to Mills. Slipped as he kicked it, but he got good purchase on it. He can read on at full stretch.
He's a champion.
Yes, he is. He looks to an open forward setup. Schneider is on the lead for him. It bounces and causes him a few dramas, and he's held without it by Boyd.
It's a pretty good free to give because he was away.
Schneider in midfield. Fantastic goal he kicked in the third quarter. Goes very wide with this kick. Goddard reaches it about half a metre inside the boundary line and hand passes backwards about 25 metres to Gwilt behind the logo centre wing. Kick by Gwilt towards the 50. Revolt one out with his man. Good spoil by Morris to the front. Morris flips the ball up. Griffin just gets a hand pass away under pressure. Good tackle by Eddie. Saints still putting plenty of pressure on. Inside the 50. Ball comes to Graham. High tackle. No whistle. Ball finishes up out of bounds. And a throw in. Adam White.
He's a terrific player, Dale Morris. He started the game on Stephen Mill, now on Nick Revolt, because Tom Williams remains on the bench after that heavy knock late before three-quarter time.
The Saints forward line, Goddard knocks it to the front. Paddled off the ground by Minson, only as far as Farron Ray. He can put the Saints to full forward. High ball, Revolt! Read the drop zone perfectly.
Oh, save something for next week, Rui.
Graham is up holding a groin after he got brought down in a pretty stern tackle by Picken.
Oh, yeah.
It's smarted. Nick Revolt, the kickers with him. Took a while to boot Majors, but they came in the third term. Now for his third. Vanaloo. The Saints slam the door shut with the first of the final term. They lead by 37, and Captain Nick has 3.
Yeah, and so he should. He's been sensational. Since half-time, he's just led the charge. He has dominated that centre-half forward position. Poor old Tommy Williams has been terrific on him all day for the first half. Cut him out, but now the work rate lifts. That's what stars do. That's what the champs are good at. They work harder than the opposition. They work harder in the second half than they do in the first. And you find out reputations are gained on these situations. And Nick just continues to enhance his.
Great player. Fantastic comeback from a hamstring injury that threatened to end his season. Bounce in the middle. Gardner uncontested. Rowed by Hayes, but it's taken away from him. Gian Syracuse, you've been a passenger tonight, Gia. He's taken the ground in a good tackle. No prior.
I reckon you've been kind, Drew.
Kind?
He may never play again. He may not play again.
Thrown up by the umpire. Gardner wins another one. Straight to Goddard. Saints killing them everywhere. Bounces to the front of the pack. Eddie runs onto the ball. Hand pass to Schneider. He gathers 55 out. Kicks to Kosicki. All Revolt. Cosy marks. Kosicki streaming up the ground towards the ball, and Revolt, as he does so often, running in the same direction as the ball. Just as well they didn't have another collision like earlier in the game. But Revolt left it for his mate, and Kosicki has taken the mark right in front, 20 from goal. Kicked 1 goal, 1 tonight. In the first final, he had 5 touches in the first quarter and never saw it again for the rest of the game. Kosicki kicks another one for the Saints. This is an obliteration in the second half. The Saints are 12-10-82 to 5-9-39.
Well, I know the game's got a bit to go, but I'll tell you, in the coach's box, in the Saint Kilda coach's box, they're already thinking next week. They'll be starting to think the mist will be going down to the bench. They'll be talking to the fitness people. They'll want to know who wants to go off and do those type of things. Tell you what, I'll be giving a bit of consideration to number 12 coming out of the rest, because I think the St Kilda, they've got some great players. Let me tell you, the hopes of a flag, they rest with number 12.
It's 9 goals to 1 after half-time. And Graham comes down to get the work on the groin. Minson and Gardner to square off across the circles. Minson down to Ward, worn close by Goddard, and will need to go again. Adam White.
Yeah, it's exactly what's happening. A massage to the right groin for Jason Graham, and it is his kicking leg, so it has to be a concern as well.
Thrown up, came to the side, Pete to Jones, ran into 2 tackles. Pickens stripped him of the ball when the umpire called it to a halt. Wide of the pack on the tap again. This time they're running out to the members' wing. Knocked forward by Cross. Didn't come off though. Dempster repels. Hand pass to Fisher. Gives it to Hayes. Kicks a wobbly looking ball forward. Be cut off by Minson. He works the hand pass. Ward, Harbrow and Hargrave. He'll have to chase the ball out toward the boundary. He can set himself forward with a long kick up near Murphy. Gilbert wears him close. Murphy darts to the back. Clever little tap on. Out to Eagleton. Back to Murphy. Oh, Dawson met him front on. Dragging that over the boundary. Zach Dawson doesn't get too many raps, but that's going to look view.
Yeah, pretty good rap of his coach for hanging on to Hall too all day. He's done a pretty good job down there on Barry.
Still goalless. Big bustling at the boundary throw in. It is taken by Hudson. Goes to ground. Oh, Ward, what a game. Hey, he goes for goal. Please go through. This is to the left-hand side. And a minor score. Callan Ward, I reckon the game of his life tonight. Absolutely fantastic. He's up to 27 possessions. The Dogs, that was their first score of this last quarter. It's taken nearly 8 minutes. It's 12-10-82 to 5-10-40.
Kick in into the back pocket. Goddard actually runs it there himself. Boots it down the line. Ray behind Boyd. Boyd gets to his boot. Put it out near Picken, who was taken high. Fisher is the man to have committed the offence. Picken does get a few around the scone, doesn't he? Long inside the 50. There's nothing but Saints there. Dawson flies, drops the mark on this occasion. Got it out near Goddard, who's dragged down in 2 tackles, and there it's going to be bounced. 25 out from goal, Adam White.
Nick Del Santo spent the first 8 minutes of the final quarter on the bench. He's come out for a little bit of a trot around.
Thrown up by the umpire, cross, third man up. Well, Grant has an air swing. It's taken away by Peake. Kicks to midfield. Revolt hits the ball at 100 miles an hour, can't quite gather, and then sockers it off the ground, gains 25 metres, and it goes out on centre wing. St Kilda have kicked 10 of the last 11 goals in the game, and it's pretty much down to Nick Revolt, who has played his lights out here. Throw in at the centre wing. Comes to the back of the pack. Ward taken to ground. Good tackle on this occasion by Milne. And the umpire will throw it up again. How do you manage these players headed for a grand final in the last 20 minutes or so? At the moment, we've got Gardner, Graham, Schneider and McWalter on the bench for the Saints.
Cross restarts play with a hand pass to Eagleton. Works it down the line. 2 wide for John Syracuse and out of play. The modern rotation doesn't really allow for the rest of the players at this stage. But Revolt, he might be the exception to the rule. This is the applause for the Saints skipper.
21 possessions, 12 contested possessions.
Picken bunts it forward from the stoppage to Boyd to Eagleton. Kicked it out on the full. Any cotton wool down there, Whitey?
Lots of cotton wool. I tell you who's going to be the busiest man of this last quarter. It's the physio. He's running out, going up to all the St Kilda players saying, how are you feeling? You need to come off.
Lenny Hayes has it at defensive 50.
Surely Revolt actually come back.
There's a few doggies you'd love to come off, I reckon.
Yeah, kicks it hard and high. Kaczynski crashed the pack. The Saints come up with it. Kick forward by McWalter. The last man back is Harbrow, though, for the Dogs. He can run across half-back. He'll be in his final quarter with the Dogs as well before he heads off to join the Suns. Up they go through Gilby. Kicks to half forward. Cross takes the mark. Grant offered a lead. The kick flares wider, though. Addison. 75. Make it 70 from goal. Brad Johnson trots from the bench. Addison tries to measure up the perfect pass to the 50. He did okay, but Cross is still going to be too far out to score. Hand pass to Eagleton. Couldn't get round to have the shot. Harbrow can. He tumbles it a bit, though, and off hands across the pace. It is a behind. Saints by 41.
And Syracuse to the bench, just 8 touches for the night. Lenny Hayes comes to the bench for the Saints. Just nearly equal in hero status with Nick Revolt. And they'd still be disappointed he wasn't made an All-Australian this week. McAvoy takes a nice mark at half-back for the Saints. 82-41, the Saints have doubled the Dogs' score. And the Dogs led at quarter time and still led at half time. Poor old kick. Here's Ward again. Sensational night. No clean pickup though. And dropped in a tackle by Lake. The Saints have it again. Interchange of handballs. Eddie goes back to Del Santo. He's kicked high. Kaczynski. Good catch. In between wing and half forward. Waits for the troops to come past for a bit of support. draws a man. Hand passes over to Del Santo, who kicks out wide looking for Milne. Not a great kick. Oh, dropped by Picken. Milne gathers on the boundary, 50 out, but his kick is smothered. Over the line it goes off Boyd, and we'll have a throw in. St Kilda 12-10, Western Bulldogs 5 goals 9. Mick Malthouse is here having a look to see his opponent for next week in the grand final.
12 minutes or thereabouts to play. Picken had just a hack at that in mid-air. It's a bit dangerous. He didn't make any contact with anybody or didn't go far either. He tossed up again, 50 from the Saints goal. 41 points. Up it goes, wide of the pack, Picken onto it, met hard by Eddie. They're both going to be slow to rise. Montagna feeds it out to Gardner. He fires the kick out of the pack. It's all on the bounce. Williams has overrun it. Del Santo onto it, tumbles at a goal. It rolled the wrong way. They're still not out of it because Schneider has it. Hand pass to Eddie, didn't find him. Cross gets down low. Kicked off the ground by Gilby. And it tumbles away and out of bounds.
It's players like Cross and that, I reckon they embarrass some of their teammates because of what they're prepared to do, where other players just run in circles waiting for them to do it.
Too few of them, that's the problem.
Barry Hall tonight, 2 marks, 2 kicks. No influence. Hudson at the ruck, gets the hand pass away. Here's Ward again. Can't give him a possession for that, but he's in after it with his nose over the ball, and it bumbles off him all the way to the boundary line, and a throw in. He's going to run from that position to the bench and be interchanged. Griffin comes back on. Brad Johnson on the ground. Will he stay out there for the rest of the game? His final game of footy.
Back of the pack, it's gathered by Cross, the stoppage, kicking up to halfway. Wilt lays a pretty stern tackle on Boyd, but Gilbert is the man to pull it clear. He hand passes to Gardner, darts around, hand pass to Dawson, who's mown down by Minson in the back. Minson got away with one of those last week. It got the holding the ball verdict last week. This week it's in the back. Zach Dawson's inside the centre square. Rebold has come back onto the ground. He was demanding the ball out near the interchange gates. He'll probably get it at some stage.
He probably overruled all the officials. Everybody probably wanted him to sit down, and he's got to be in it.
Wilt up to the 50. McAvoy can't handle the bouncing ball. Lake disputes it with him. They all pile in, and Rebold says, why didn't you kick it to me?
Well, you're absolutely right, Drew, because he's a footballer. That's all he wants to do is go and play footy. And come out here, why wouldn't you want to finish the game off? There's 60,000 people here, have a good day.
Hudson takes it 55 from the defensive goal, kicks loose sideways. Gilby marks though, feeds the hand pass over to Ward, runs the wing, hand pass to Griffin, kicks for Hall, 1 out. The kick is well in front of Big Baz. He gathers on the bounce, he's trying to wrong foot Dawson, he does. Hall gets away, opens up the goal front and misses. So still nothing for Barry Hall out of this preliminary final. A couple of behinds and a 40-point deficit for his team.
I used to cheer him once at St Kilda. Lenny Hayes, beautiful pass. Mark to peak. There's the crowd posted at 62,694. Last night we had 95,000. So it's starting to get back on track for finals crowds. Kick outside the 50. Mark taken by Dempster, who kicks to centre wing. Eddie throws himself at it, can't mark, the ball stays in. The other number 40, Harbrow, gathers. Hand pass to Lake, who shrugs off Eddie. Back to Harbrow, swivels the hips, can't get clear but gets the hand pass away. Ball taken by Morris, just boot the ball any old how, and Dempster marks on centre wing. Threads through a good hand pass to Lenny Hayes. Half-distance pass, and Graham walks in to take the mark. Fires away the hand pass to Ray, just outside the 50. Off the left, not all that great. And it's taken up there by Wood, who slings out a hand pass, close to the boundary line, gathered by Hargrave, and he puts Morris out in the clear.
Morris works it up the line on the kick. Cross, got a shove in the back from Gwilt. Blake runs onto the bouncing ball at the back, sends it inside the 50. Brad Johnson camps, 2 come to him. Hall bashes the pack, trying to pull it clear. Johnson has it. Come on, Brad, kick a goal. He swings it onto the left. It bounces in the square, sits up. Hall can't gather it. St Kilda with the numbers. Free kick to Barry Hall.
that's not as good a result if it had been a Brad Johnson goal.
Zach Dawson, he had the numerical advantage with Gardner coming to him, but he's dragged Hall down. Close in, Barry Hall's kicked it into Zach Dawson. And it's smothered through for a rush behind. And it's just not working for Barry Hall tonight. 15-13, 5-13-43 the Bulldogs, 12-10-82 the Saints.
I suppose you could give that as a rush, but I'd rather give it as a behind to Barry. 3 behinds, no goals. He's come to earth tonight. Good mark in the pack. Taken by Hudson. A kick under the armpit to Griffin. Ridden into the ground. Is it in the back? Well, no decision either way. The umpire says the ball pinned. And he'll bounce it about 40 metres from goal. Barry Hall coming to the bench, and Zach's going all the way with him. Montagna has it for the Saints. Hurried kick towards the boundary line, and he gets it out. And Zach's told to go back, and Barry Hall gets to the bench without the company of his marksman all night, Zach Dawson. And now Zach goes to the bench.
At the throw-in, Vincent knocks it down to Hargrave, feeds the hand pass out to Picken. He can run at the 50, has a bounce, kicks to full forward. He's drifted it beyond all his men though, and it sits as easy meat for Fisher. He brings the Saints out quickly with Dempster providing the outlet. He kicks down the southern side. If Pete marks, he might break. Murphy's the coverage. Pete does take the mark, but he can't get away from Rob Murphy. He still might try. Peake runs a wide arc, sets it in the revolt direction. He actually kicked it straight to Williams. He didn't mark, he ran it out of play. And in a contest, you'd all call for deliberate out of bounds. We're just marking time, though. And it will be thrown in inside the Saints 50. Punch to the front of the ruck duel. Easton Wood with a hand pass. Ward gets another. It's a hand pass to Hargrave. Kicks to a dicey situation. Spoil made on Morris. Eddie's trying to win it. He'll do enough to see it out of play. And that'll give the Saints a chance on the opposite side of the field. 39 points to the good.
Lost his dax there for a sec, Eddie. 82-43. A dominant second half by the Saints to convert a deficit into a comfortable win. Gardner in ruck, comes down to Picken of the Dogs, who was stood up in the tackle by Jones and Schneider. And the umpire will bounce. So the Bulldogs once again are going to lose a preliminary final. They've lost 8 of the 9 preliminary finals they played over the years. And now it's 9 out of 10. Ball comes to centre wing. Gilbert gathered by Montagna. Blind hand pass to Schneider. A goal by Schneider. He bounced it through from 35 metres. He's kicked 3, the Schneider man. St Kilda rollicking away. This has become a pretty fair score on their sort of season average. 13-10-88 to the Dogs, 5-13-43.
It's really just academic now. Look, this quarter, I reckon after the first 2 goals, really they're just going through the motions, and not only they, but so some of the Bulldog players. And I'm going to tell you, Will Minson, who might be built that big, but gee, to be pushed off the footy as easy as that was very, very disappointing. But Snyder's been a good one for them today. There's no doubt about it. He's kicked his goals, he's been involved in them, he's played up the ground, he's played forward. So he's been a very good contributor. But there's no doubt we're going to get the 2 best sides next week. And that's the real thing out of this game. And the real challenge will be Saints and the Pies.
10 goals to 1 after half-time. Montagna running at the ball in the middle. Didn't gather. He gets back in there to contest it with Picken. The umpire calls it to a halt.
So the Dogs, you can talk about history, and losing preliminary finals when there was a different final system probably means nothing, but it is the last 3 in a row.
Ruck infringement will go the way of Minson. Just on the crowd, 62,694. Last year's prelim drew 78,245. Same 2 teams. Kick across half-back for Wood, who breaks around Graham, who seems a little impeded, delivers up to the 50. It comes through a few sets of hands, gathered by Grant, gives to Jan Siracusa, and he kicks a late one. He's been largely absent. Gia.
Oh, really?
He hopped out of the caboose.
Someone must have given it to him. He couldn't have won it on his own.
6-13-49, trailing St Kilda 13-10-88, 22 gone.
He's disappointing, dear. He's got a couple of mates as well. The few of them who really don't like to win a hard ball. They just got to have the ball given to him. And unfortunately for the Dogs, they've got too many of them to win a final. And this has been exposed tonight dramatically. You do build reputations in finals, and I'm sorry for Gia. He hasn't built the right one.
The Dogs' overall finals record is 14 wins from 44 matches in finals. Came into the comp in 1925. That's a low percentage. We have a secondary bounce in the middle, in fact thrown up quickly by the umpire. And it's won by Hudson. Kick long into the forward 50, and Dawson outmarks the ball. And for the early days of Zach Dawson at Hawthorn, people thought he wasn't worth a Zach. But he has absolutely stood up tonight and beaten a bloke who looks about twice his size. Not in height, but in bulk. And he's killed Barry Hall tonight. Back to Gwilt, gets it outside the 50, and the mark's taken by Ray. Holding the ball aloft. Yeah, we know what you might do with it. High ball towards centre wing. McAvoy, good mark. Big Ben kicked a goal earlier on tonight. Passes in short to Montagna. It was in that All-Australian team. Lenny Hayes wasn't. You could debate that for a decade, I reckon.
Montagna delivered it back to Ray. He just loops the ball out across half-back. Perhaps he thought to cover the 15, he'd give it 7.5 up and 7.5 down. And Goddard marks at left half-back. Saints just trying to keep this out of any contested situations in the last 5 minutes of the game. It has to go to a contest. Spoils are made. McQualter tumbled to kick out. Only as far as Boyd. Sets the Dogs back to the wing. Diving in was Addison, but he can't take the mark. And complete his journey to the bench with the ball out of play. 88 plays 49. St Kilda and Collingwood played twice during the year. They split them. The first time was the night Revolt got injured. The second time Collingwood hammered St Kilda mercilessly. Hahn from the stoppage sends it up to half forward. Ricochet taken by Griffin. Puts it out in front of Barry Hall. He rushes into the forward pocket and the ball turns away from him because that's the sort of night it is. And it's out of play next to the behind post.
Zach will take credit for that, really.
At the Lee Brown bounce on it. Thrown in, Minson knocks it to the front. There's nothing but Saints there though. Fisher to Graham, kicks around the corner, outside the defensive area. It's a rainmaker. Boyd camped underneath it, didn't take the mark. McQualter hand passed over his head, actually threw it over his head. And it'll be a Dogs free kick.
I hope Robert Eddy's done enough tonight. 3 preliminary finals in his 3 years, but he was dropped for the grand final last year. This ball has gone through for a rush behind for the Dogs. So let's have a look at Eddy. Yeah, he's done all right tonight, hasn't he?
Possessions, Drew.
11 possessions. Well, it's not a rib-tickling game. James Gwilt kicks in, comes to Montagna, front of the pack. Hand pass over the top. Hargrave gathers for the Bulldogs and centres the ball towards centre half forward. It's out into a bit of space. Awkward bouncing ball to gather. And Graham, who is definitely impeded by that groin injury, didn't go all that hard at it. And now it's a ball up just outside the 50. 88 plays 50. We're 26.5 minutes gone in the final quarter. Not long to go. Nick Revolt sitting on the bench. Bit of an injury problem for Del Santo. He's on the bench with him.
Minson knocks it down to Hudson, gives it to Jan Siracusa, kicks inside the 50. Lake has gone forward and he takes the mark. Every bit of 50 out from Gell. The last thing left for the Dogs, I guess, would be a goal for Brad Johnson. Blake can't have a shot. He kicks it to Hargrave, breaks to half forward, kicks it as far as he can. There's 5 Saints back against Jarrett Grant, and they comfortably make the spoil, concede the score, and the margin becomes 37 points.
So the illustrious career of the smiley man Brad Johnson is about to come to an end here, and a disappointing way to finish. Saints have it in the back pocket. Kick by Ray to a pack. Up goes Hudson, and he takes the mark. Fires out the hand pass to Hargrave. They lose a bit of ground. Back to Williams, to Boyd. He gets inside the 50, and Barry Hall takes a mark on the lead. That has been a rarity tonight. Big Barry, goalless for the night. If he kicks it, it'll be 80 goals for the season, which in anybody's language is a magnificent performance. He kicks from 50, but he has missed it. Duck eggs for Barry Hall in the preliminary final. 6-16 the Dogs, 13 goals 10 the Saints.
Just having a look at the chosen few on the bench. Gardner, Revolt, Montagna, Hayes. Sitting out the last couple of minutes of the match. Quick play on by Schneider, who's doing the kicking in. He kicks near Kaczynski. Ward got a hand pass away for the Dogs. Out to Jan Siracusa, up through Boyd. Kicks it to Hudson. Where's Johnson? Kick goes to full forward. Hall takes the mark, and he'll get yet another crash.
Surely he'll kick this one.
I know you've marked him harshly and put him as 4 behinds, and he's got 2 that didn't sort of trouble the goal front as well, I reckon. Surely this time. Goal number 80 for the season on offer to Barry Hall. He claims it on this occasion. And that should close down his year as an octogenarian in terms of goal kicking. 7-16, 58 the Dogs. St Kilda 13-10, 88. We've gone 29 minutes.
Well, there's a mercy rule should kick in here. We've all had enough. All players have had enough. Saints and the Doggies and the crowd and everyone else, commentators. We're ready for next week. And Barry Hall has just kicked his 80th, which is a super effort, really, for a 33-year-old playing, still playing football at full forward in a team that doesn't get it down there that often, especially lately. But 80 goals to anyone in this competition at any age is a superb effort.
Well, it's more than anybody else, because Jack Revolt kicked his in the home and away, and he won the John Coleman, but Hall's gone past him in the finals. McAvoy out of the middle towards full forward. Oops, the mark dropped by Williams. Chance for McWalter at ground level. Ball spills out to Boyd, who has a fumble. He enlists the help of Cross, who goes back to Harbrow. Might be his last game for the Dogs. They reckon he's going to the Gold Coast. Comes up wide to Wood. Short to Gilby. To Hahn just outside the 50. He thought of playing on, but goes back for a deliberate kick. It's all over. The Saints are in their second successive grand final. Hahn goes for goal after the siren. Actually, he's kicked it. As the umpire say, all clear. It's a goal. It's a goal to Mitch Hahn. So the Dogs finish 8-16 to St Kilda, 13 goals 10. The Saints to meet the Pies next week in the grand final. St Kilda 13 goals 10, 88, defeating the Western Bulldogs 8-16, 64. The margin at the end 24 points. And with the defeat for the Bulldogs, exit AFL football Brad Johnson. Phenomenal second half by the Saints. They trailed by 8 points at quarter time, 6 points at half time, but they whacked on 7 goals to 1 in the third quarter to lead by 31 at that stage, and they just went through the motions in the last quarter, finished up winning by 24, 13-10, 88 to the Dogs, 8-16, 64. The hero Nick Revolt, who lifted them magnificently in the third quarter and finished with 3 goals. Schneider kicked 3 goals. Kaczynski and Milne kicked 2 each. And there were singles for McAvoy, Gardner and Peake. And for the Bulldogs, Barry Hall got 1 late. Other singles for Grant, Hahn, Gilby, Giansiracusa, Addison and Picken. The Dogs bow out for the 3rd year in a row in a preliminary final.
So Brett Johnson never reaches the grand final in his career. We'll have a chat out on the ground, and then all the Bulldogs officials and injured players and their players and fans of St Kilda as well will see him off into retirement, and the Saints can go and ponder the grand final that rests ahead.
Just 10 possessions for him in his last game. It was just a bridge too far, I think.
He limped to the end. The Achilles this year brought him undone early. And everything has been a trial thereafter. St Kilda put their rejoicing on hold and go and form the guard of honour with their adversaries of the past 2.5 hours standing opposite. And we don't linger too long tonight with the TV interview. Brad Johnson embraced by Nick Revolt. A warm moment between the two skippers. And a journey that began in 1994 for Brad Johnson ends as he's hoisted up on shoulders. And we honour a great man of football. 364 games. One of the men who has been the heart and soul of the club from the western suburbs. Johnson takes a lingering look into the stands as fans of both persuasions and the neutrals gaze down upon him once more and send down the warmest applause you can imagine. Johnson sent back down to the turf, and he'll walk out of the game with a battery of photographers around him. Farewell, Brad Johnson. Farewell to the Bulldogs for season 2010. This historical impediment that is the preliminary final brings them undone. And the Saints head out to join with their fans for a moment or two. The grand final, Mark McClure, is a reprise of 1966. The Saints and the Pies.
Yeah, it sure is. And Saints were sensational tonight. They were really hard early. They were hard at it. But then in the second half, they still have a chance to win their second grand final. They're in their second grand final in a row, and they've got a chance. And let me tell you, the weight is with the people who have played. You go, Derek.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotion coming back and forth because some of these fans won't be here next week for the grand final. It's a chance to acknowledge what's been done. Our News Radio audience departs. The Saints over the Dogs. And we will head down into the rooms with St Kilda. In fact, we might go there now, Mark, so we don't interrupt your flow. Adam White will have set up and he'll be awaiting them. We get images from the other room of Brad Johnson being embraced by staff and officials as well. His journey is a more lonesome one. Adam, I reckon they'll have plenty of friends in the Saints rooms.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We've got all the players that have not played tonight in the grey suits with the red, white and black striped ties, just waiting for the players to arrive. And here they come. Nick Revolt first in, followed by Brendan Goddard and Zach Dawson. Nick Revolt is pumped. Not a lot being said, to be honest. A few smiles, a few handshakes. A lot of clapping going on, but not from the players that played tonight. They look a very tired lot. They all start to file in now. That's Stephen Milne that just broke the silence. Enjoy it, St Kilda fans. You're into a grand final. So there you go. It's almost business as usual. Not too much excitement going on. In fact, Ross Lyon has called them all straight into a meeting. It's not any week, is it? This is grand final week about to start. We're going to have a chat to Lee Montagner shortly, boys. So until then, it's back upstairs.
13-10-88 the Saints over the Dogs, 8-16-64. Mark.
Yeah, second appearance in a grand final in a row, and they deserve it. They've been terrific for 2 years. Best side in the competition last year by a mile, and second best this year. And this time they're in the grand final. Everyone's equal now. Doesn't make any difference at all. You know, they just get the job done. They know how to do it. They're very, very good. They're ready for the next week. They're ready for the Pies. They know it. They looked at them last night and probably should have turned the television off because they were outstanding early, but that won't scare them. They look forward to next week. By this time next week, you watch Ross Lyon. He'll set them up. We'll have a plan that we can beat the Pies next week. They're well drilled, and maybe, just maybe, there may be a place for Stevie Baker out there as well. The Dogs, well, Brad Johnson, sensational. Love his work. He's been sensational at the Dogs for a hell of a long time. But reputations are built and reputations are destroyed in finals. And there was a few done today, both ways. Half a game's not good enough for a side who finishes in the top four. You know, they really aren't worthy of their spot to play in a grand final, and that was shown. They go nowhere. There's a couple of players who really worry me big time. With Lindsay Gilbey, Gian Siracusa, Eagleton, Hargrave refuse to win a hard ball. And if you want to play in finals, you play one-on-one, and you've got to win the hard ball or don't play. They can't go forward with those people if they want to be a force in the future. They need to get rid of them completely. There's a few small things they need to do. Composure, tackling. Their tackle count game was pathetic. They were down by 25 in the tackle count, 16th on the ladder in that area. Unbelievable. Hold your feet. You know, that's just a mindset, and being strong on your feet and strong in your body to hold your ground against everyone else. And you're caught behind, you actually punch. You know, everyone wants you to go and punch the ball, and Brian Lake's been accused of that. If he can go for a mark, so can everyone else. The examples have to be set by the senior players, and some places they're not. Rocket must play more kids. He's got to add to Ward and Grant and Picken and Addison. And you know, I'm sorry that Harbrow's going to go, but he's okay too, Harbrow. And they must play him for game time for the future. Otherwise, they're going to slide down the ladder in a real hurry.
So it got as far as 45 in that last quarter before finishing at 24. And just a quick recap of the injuries at St Kilda, which Adam will tell you more about. Del Santo was troubled by what appeared to be a left hamstring, but he played out the game, and Graham was definitely inhibited by a groin as the longer the match went on.
And I reckon Goddard will be looked at by the match review panel for the backhander on Picken. Did we see enough of it? Is he in trouble? Is it bad enough to cost him a grand final?
I don't know about that.
I don't know if he's got points, and I think forced impact. I didn't think it was that high. I mean, I know he's gone down. He had to leave the ground, I suppose. He didn't leave the ground, did he? He was going to.
No.
He'll be right. They let everybody off at this time unless it's gruesome, and it's not gruesome. It's just it is a bit of an incident. And in round 14, I'd be with you. They'd pop that up and have a good look, but dismissed.
Remember Barry Hall? He captained St Kilda to a premiership in 2005. He whacked a bloke 100 metres off the ball, and they ruled that it was in play.
No, not in play. Not in play.
It was in play.
And I'll tell you a story about that. I had a friend of mine who was he's an Italian, and he came over. It was his first game of football that he'd ever seen, and he was sitting right in front of that incident with Ian Maguire, and he came home and he thought, can you do that in this game? And I said, no, well, you can't. He'll get weeks. And he played the next week and captained them to a grand final.
Stan, can the Saints win the flag?
Well, I think that if we look at today's game, from my perspective, they were like a good side, and they won when they were challenged. I think that they were really taken aback early by the competitiveness of the Bulldogs, the ferocity of it. I would suggest also that the slippiness of the game meant that you weren't going to get that real class in talent to be able to do that. But then, like a good side, when they were challenged, they were lifted, and it was led by their skipper. He had a game by his standards that was down in the first half, and you've got to give credit to Williams from that point of view, and it was aided by Morris. I thought was fantastic. But in that third quarter, they just took the game by the scruff of the neck, and in 20 minutes to kick 7 goals to 1, the game was over. And when that was over, then they went into their situation of playing that tempo, or it's not tempo, it's keeping soft.
you can give it a term what you want. It's keeping's off. We're going to control the game. We've won it. And I think that's, to me, stood out again, that they were not going to allow you back into the game, not going to take any risk. We've built up this little bit of a lead and we're going to do that. And they really did that for the rest of the game. So from that point of view, it was a sort of game, if a game was going to challenge Collingwood, that's the sort of game that needed to be played. So there were some really good things from that point of view. I think also the fact that in that quarter that they got people like Goddard, who was really under the pump by picking in the first half, but he took his game to another level. Montagna, who probably had a quiet night by his circumstances, but grasped the opportunity and ran probably harder than he would. Snyder started to come good for them. Graham started to get a few little things. If there was a concern, Gerard, the concern will be the fitness level of Del Santo. And why I say that is, and look, if Graham's, it looked as if he did a groin in his right side. He came back and he played half then. But my concern would be those two players, because the depth of the Collingwood midfield, I don't think you can go with any players down. And what compounds that to me is that there's players out there tonight who, like McQualter and Eddie, if they're forced to come up and take the gap, I don't think they can fill the void in that situation, and they wouldn't be able to do it against a quality side like Collingwood. But having said that, and watched the Bulldogs play to the level that they did, the best side by far won. And we're going to get, in my opinion, the grand final by the two best sides in the competition.
St Kilda by 24 points over the Western Bulldogs. Chris.
Well, the really disappointing thing is that at half-time, I walked out of here, had a bit of a break, and I thought they need to hang in for another 20 to 25 minutes. If they could hang in until almost three-quarter time with a little bit of a... whether they were down or up by a few points, they were in it, because mentally they would have been able to put a huge amount of pressure back onto St Kilda. But I reckon there's one thing that really stood out, and I reckon 6 to 8 weeks ago we saw St Kilda prepare for the finals. They weren't worried about the end of the season. We saw them play some really ordinary games of football, but they looked forward, and all their preparation has been around about what are we going to be able to do with our players to prepare them as well as we possibly can for the finals, and they were able to do that. I think what we saw in the second half was the fact that the Bulldogs just weren't able to do that. And yes, Johnson was out there, and yes, Morris was out there, and yes, Griffin and Lake were out there. But there's one thing about turning up to a game and being able to play, and the other thing being able to actually train throughout the course of the week to prepare as well as you possibly can. I'm not talking about the physio and the massage and the doctors and all those sorts of things. I'm talking about the work you can put into your legs, into your body, to be able to get to the game on the weekend, being able to last the distance. And the Dogs just weren't able to last the distance tonight. They had passengers, they had players who were down, but I think at the end of the day, St Kilda's preparation counted for a huge amount in the second half, and the Dogs' inability to be able to prepare their players the way that they'd like to be able to prepare them caught them out. And yes, head over the ball, tackles, all those things are reasons why the Dogs went down in the second half. But gee, they just were out on their feet, and that's not an excuse for them. I just think that that's one of the big reasons why we saw them drop off. I agree with Mark that there was players in the team that, they were actually not playing overly well in the first half as well, those particular players. Gia wasn't playing overly well in the first half. Mitch Hahn started well, drifted out of the game. Lindsay Gilby had a pretty poor game. Ryan Hargrave had an ordinary defensive game. Those players weren't actually playing well in the early part of the game, and then when the tempo went up, they were just complete passages in the second half, and no one else was able to drag them with them. Callum Moore was our best player for the night, and again, Daniel Cross and Matthew Boyd were their other two generators throughout the course of the evening. 4-quarter performance. There was no other four-quarter performance for the Dogs. And to have a 20-year-old actually lead contested possessions, which was 17, he had more contested possessions than he did uncontested possessions, 17 to 13. And feather in his cap, but too many passengers tonight.
Let's head into the Saints' rooms as they contemplate a grand final. Adam White.
Thanks, Gerard. I've got Lee Montagna here contemplating that grand final. At what point do you start thinking, geez, we're going to another grand final here?
Oh, you probably allow yourself to think it maybe in the last 15 minutes, that last quarter, and it's a great effort by the boys. We've worked hard. It started back in pre-season. We've worked hard all season to give ourselves another chance, and we're very proud of ourselves to give ourselves another crack at it.
You've had a huge year, so much has gone on, but at half-time it was looking a little dicey. It was a terrific game of footy from both sides, but you guys needed to lift. What changed and what was said at half-time?
Yeah, you're right. The writing was on the wall at half-time. Our season was on the line, but, we've got great confidence in each other and great confidence in our structures, and we have a lot of self-belief, and we knew that if we just kept grinding away, doing the basics and sticking to our structures and roles, we knew we'd give ourselves every chance, and we've played in a lot of close games and we've gotten over the line in most of them, so we knew that it would be tight, and that if we just dug in and did the right things, that more likely than not we'd get over the line, which we did.
It's funny you say that, because I did notice that there was never any panic watching the game from ground level, and you see the guys coming on and off the bench. Never any panic when things weren't going well for you in that first half.
No, and that's the beauty of our group. We're a very mature group, a lot of senior players that have played a lot of footy together, and that's one of our strengths. We don't panic. If we get a couple of goals behind, we don't worry. We get back to the basics and trying to win the next contest, and each bloke winning their next contest. And as I said, each bloke at half time made a pact to themselves to dig in, and that's what we did.
You've got a different grand finalist to go up against this week. The obvious question is, do you feel you're better prepared this time than you were 12 months ago?
Probably. I'd have to say we are. I think, another year together, another year with, working on our structures and working on our game plan. We know what we have to do in each situation, and we've been at the big dance last year and, experienced that, and, it was quite a tight game. So, we've got a lot of belief that if we do the right things and, execute our game plan and everyone brings their A-grade effort, that we'll be at least a chance. So, and that's all we can ask for.
Well, Lee's got his headphones on. He's sitting back with about 4 bags of ice on his legs, and he's ready to have a chat.
Congratulations, Lee. Just wondered if you watched last night.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I watched it, and Collingwood were very, very impressive.
They were outstanding.
Yeah, they were. So, look, we're well aware that grand finals aren't easy to win, and you're always going to be playing a tough opposition, and it's going to be a huge ask for us. But as I said, we'll prepare as best we can and give ourselves an almighty chance.
You've got a bit of history on your side. 12 of the last 40 years have won on the back of losing the year before. And that's happened many times. Out of about 16 tries, there's 12 have won. So you're in the game.
Yeah, you're right. And as I said, look, the advantage, I suppose, that we've got over Collingwood is we have that burning desire. We know what it feels like to lose a grand final, and it hurts. And each bloke's, got different levels of burning in there. And, if a game's tight and tense and we need an extra bit of, motivation, hopefully the boys can draw on that feeling that, might be able to get us over the line.
Lee, you mentioned about the things that you believe as a side you need to do, and I'm not asking you to share those. I mean, that's fair enough. But would it be a pretty good head out tonight with the fact that you were challenged and those things had to be put into operation, and that's a pretty good preparation going into a grand final?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We had to really, get our structures right, get our roles right. The Western Bulldogs are very good at trying to disorganise you, so we had to keep our composure and not be daunted by their tricks that they do. And, we were pleased to be able to do that in the second half. And as I said, the more important than the structure, no good having structures if you don't have effort, and it's no good having effort if you don't have structures. So when you combine the two, we get the performance that we had.
Do you think Bakes will get a run?
Not sure. I mean, it's probably going to be tough for him now. He's not getting the side tonight. That's why the coach gets paid the big bucks to make the decision. And, he said before this night's game that it was one of the toughest calls he had to make. And, it'll be another tough decision for him next week.
How did he drop the bowling ball on his foot? Can you tell us that?
I don't know. I don't know what he did. I don't know if that's actually correct. It was. I don't think that was correct, no.
If there would be a concern, I would suggest amongst St Kilda supporters, Lee, is that when a side, and you in that really 20 minutes of that third term, you put the gap in them, and then it's really about how a player's going. And I think there's a fair bit of concern amongst the crowd in terms of Nick Del Santo. He certainly looked restricted. Have you got any information on how he is?
No, I don't yet. I know that he was played. I think he might have played some restricted minutes and played a bit more of a different role. So I think he is a bit sore. I actually haven't seen him yet to know what exactly is wrong with him. So hopefully, touch wood, he's okay.
The other thing is that we were saying at half-time, you talked about players stepping up and things like that. It's a team effort, I know, but gee, number 12 was pretty good in that third term of setting the scene.
I knew that was coming. He was probably down, I think, in the first half, was he?
Yeah, we thought so. Williams did a good job on him.
And he steeled himself at half-time. He was really geeing the boys up, and he's got that unbelievable desire and that steel in his eye, and even after the game, he's not allowing himself to celebrate just yet. He's got a real steel to get this premiership. So, he's a champion, and he did exactly what he did, and credit to him.
Lee, how will you tackle this week? You've had the experience of last year. Did you learn anything from last year that you'd like to change yourself?
No, I think we gave ourselves every chance last year. I think we prepared the same. We try and keep, I know for the finals and we will for grand final, keep all our program the same, so the meetings at the same time and the same length, and do the same things we always do. Obviously, there's going to be a few more commitments, but I think we handled it pretty well last year. As I said, we're quite a senior group and quite mature, so we'll embrace the week and give ourselves every opportunity on game day next week.
We've got one more for Lee, guys, before he goes, so make it a good one.
Well, Joe, the club's been through a lot this year off the field. Many things to distract you. Is that in any way to steel you for the big one?
I don't know if it'll steal us for the big one, but no doubt it's steeled us as a group. As you said, we've faced a lot of challenges, but we're a mentally strong group. We used every incident and everything that happened this year as a trigger to focus on our preparation, focus on what we need to do to win games of footy. We understood that was stuff being said out in the media, but we focused on ourselves. It's the St Kilda bubble that we talk about. We focused on our preparation, and here we are giving ourselves a chance in the last day of September.
We'll see you back here on Saturday.
Thank you, guys. It's up.
Lee Montagna with us in the St Kilda rooms. 13-10, 88 over the Western Bulldogs, 8-16, 64.